Chapter 1608. This. Xiaohua took the golden object with some surprise, but before he could take a closer look, Hanju frowned and waved his hand. Someone's coming. Put this golden object away. When you have time, use your Buddhist awareness to take a look. I'll come find you when I have time. After he finished speaking, he flung his sleeve and his body swayed strangely. He used an unknown escape technique and disappeared without a trace. Xiaohua clapped his hands and stored the golden NI into his space. Just as he walked to the stream and sat down cross-legged, two silhouettes flew over from the plaza. One of them, a 10th-layer qi refining cultivator, respectfully landed in front of Xiaohua. He bowed and said with a smile, "Senior Marshal Brother, why are you here instead of exchanging things at the plaza?" Xiaohua raised his head and looked at that disciple, then looked at the early-stage Foundation establishment disciple flying in the air. He said with a smile, "I just had a sudden feeling at the E-assembly and wanted to find a place to meditate. Because I didn't have time to return to the pavilion, I found this place to meditate first. Did I violate your sex taboo?" "That's not it." The qi refining disciple said very warmly, "I'm very happy that Senior Marshal Brother was able to make a breakthrough at the Feather Immortal Assembly. However, this bright realm is born from magic treasures. There are many unknown dangers in many places. For safety's sake, it's best for Senior Marshal Brother to stay in your room." "What about here?" Xiaohua looked around and asked with a smile. The qi refining disciple looked back at the Foundation establishment disciple. Seeing the latter nod slightly, he said, "Senior Marshal Brother, if you want to meditate here, you can. However, don't go any further. When Senior Marshal Brother finishes meditating, you'd better return to the square as soon as possible." "Thank you for the reminder, Junior Marshal Brother." Xiaohua cupped his hands and continued to meditate. Seeing that Xiaohua was unwilling to leave, the two disciples didn't say anything else and flew away. They wanted to look for Kunlun Sect's frost bamboo again. Xiaohua sat next to the stream. Although his face was as calm as water, his thoughts were rippling like the stream in front of him. This frost bamboo. Could it be that it really wants to guide my Buddhist cultivation? It's possible. Didn't you hear what he said? He searched for 100 years before he finally found someone like me who had cultivated the Buddhist consciousness. Thinking about it carefully, it's normal. The rainbow epiphyllum used to make my Buddha Sarira has been growing for who knows how many years. If it was placed on someone else, it would be impossible to find it. But, Xiaohua said, for a long time, but he didn't say anything. He felt that something wasn't right. He always felt that there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world, but he couldn't figure out what was wrong. Forget it. Let's wait and see. Xiaohua thought to himself, after the Feather Immortal Assembly, I'll have to return to the Imperial Thunder Sect. Hanju is only a Kunlun Sect Foundation establishment cultivator. No matter how bold he is, he won't find the Eastern Ridge Medicinal Garden, right? My practice of Buddha's Sarira is a great taboo in the cultivation world. Isn't it the same for him? If I don't dare to say it, he wouldn't dare to say it either. After thinking about it, Xiaohua's heart calmed down. He stayed in the mountains and rivers for a while before returning to EG. At this time, there were even more people in the square, and there were many things. However, Xiaohua didn't have the mood to explore. He only found a few things that seemed to have some background and asked. The other party all opened their mouths like lions, asking for either Foundation establishment pills or cultivation methods. Xiaohua lost the slightest interest and turned back to the pavilion. Just as he entered the pavilion, he bumped into Yuanbo and Mingu. The two of them looked a little unnatural. Yuanbo smiled and said, "Junior Brother Xiao, why are you back so soon? Why didn't you find anything good?" The things in EG are too rare. Every opening is frightening. I was originally a rogue cultivator. How can I have these spirit stones? It's better to come back and hide in peace." "That's easy." Yuanbo pulled Xiaohua's sleeve and said, "Junior Brother Xiao, follow me. Whatever you like, just tell me. I'll help you." Ha! Xiaohua was stunned. After joining the Imperial Thunder Sect, he had never seen Yuanbo so affectionate. Why did he suddenly change today? "I'm afraid that's not good." Xiaohua hurriedly waved his hand. "I'm afraid I can't repay Senior Brother's enthusiasm." It's fine. Yuanbo smiled and said, "You and I are from the same sect. This is nothing. Of course, if junior brother Xiao feels apologetic, you can let me comprehend the flying speed method." Hee hee, Xiaohua pulled his sleeve back from Yuanbo's hand and said with a smile, "I suddenly felt something and want to go back to the quiet room to comprehend it. I won't accompany you too. Excuse me." Watching Xiaohua's back disappear into the quiet room's restriction, Mingu sneered, "Forget it. A lousy rogue cultivator. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Why bother with him?" "Humph, I gave you face, but you didn't want it." Yuanbo also sneered. "Junior brothers, who are you talking about?" Wang Yunxiao's voice sounded. He had just returned from outside the square. It's fine. Mingu smiled apologetically. "We were just grumbling blindly." Wang Yunxiao glanced at Xiaohua's quiet room and transmitted his voice. "When did Xiaohua return?" Yuanbo's eyes turned and he also replied, "He just returned." Why did senior brother Wang mention this? "Come with me." Wang Yunxiao's face showed a trace of strangeness. He waved his hand and brought the two into the quiet room. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the three people's faces carried a trace of strangeness and a trace of a smile. When they came out of the quiet room and passed by Xiaohua's quiet room, they looked at each other and a trace of pride appeared on their faces. How did Xiaohua, who was in the quiet room, know about this? In the range of Xiaohua's Buddhist sense, the golden eye was suffused with a golden brilliance, revealing the light and shadow of a thick book. As Xiaohua's Buddhist sense flipped, the book's pages were also flipped one by one. As he flipped, Xiaohua's face gradually showed a dignified expression. When he had roughly finished reading the book slowly closed. The light and shadow on the book disappeared and it returned to a thin golden leaf. This golden leaf was a bit similar to Xiaohua's Buddhist leaf. Xiaohua waved his hand and the golden eye was stored in the space. Xiaohua frowned and looked straight ahead, thinking, what is recorded in the golden eye is the control of Buddhist sense and the magical powers of Buddhist cultivation. It's the real deal. However, the content seems to be divided into 2 volumes. This is only the first volume. Hanju didn't say it clearly. Is he trying to keep me in suspense? Or does he want me to cultivate? Humph, how can I not eat a piece of meat that is delivered to my door? Xiaohua made a decision in an instant and thought, I'll first learn how to hide Buddhist sense. Fortunately, there are no nascent soul cultivators in this Feather Immortal assembly, and no golden core cultivators who know how to detect Buddhist sense. Otherwise, I would have lost my life long ago. Xiaohua sat cross-legged with a solemn look. The swastika between his eyebrows flashed faintly and the Buddha Saraira outside his Naiwan palace also emitted a faint Buddhist light. Outside the pavilion, in the square on the west side, which was very close to the pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect, a dozen handsome men and beautiful women in bright clothes were chatting casually with smiles on their faces. At the same time, their eyes were wandering around the items in the cubicles. They were the disciples of the Huanhua sect. At the front, Fairy Xianxia, whose face was as cold as frost, exuded a layer of coldness. This coldness seemed to be born from her bones and faintly repelled people thousands of miles away. However, it was also this coldness that attracted the gazes of many male disciples, causing many disciples to easily shift their gazes away from the cubicles and stick to her picturesque and fairy-like features. Fairy Xianxia did not care about this at all. Her bright eyes wandered and fell on a broken jade ruby on the cubicle in front of her. Before Fairy Xianxia could stop, Yun Jichong, who had been observing Fairy Xianxia from the side, took a step forward and said loudly to the disciple in the cubicle, "Junior brother, how much do you want to pay for this jade ruby?" That disciple looked at the disciples of the Huanhua sect and said with a smile, "Senior brother, this jade ruby is a magic treasure. It's just that it's a bit broken. Of course, with my cultivation level, I'm afraid I don't know about it. I want to exchange this thing for 10 foundation establishment pills. Senior brother, I wonder. You're too greedy, aren't you?" Before Yun Jichong could say anything, a disciple at the side shouted first. "Hee, I want this price. If you don't like it, you can go elsewhere." That disciple did not get angry and only said with a smile. Yun Jichong did not say anything and only glanced at Fairy Xianxia. Fairy Xianxia did not say anything and only frowned and looked carefully at the cubicle. Thinking that he had figured out Fairy Hongxia's thoughts, Yun Jichong revealed a smile and thought to himself, Junior sister Hongxia has walked for so long and did not even stop at a single cubicle. She actually stopped in front of this jade ruby. She must like it. As for whether this thing is worth 10 foundation establishment pills or not, would I care? Then, he cupped his hands and said, Junior brother, foundation establishment pills. Let's not talk about it. I don't think anyone will take out that thing in this trade fair. We sincerely want it. How many spirit stones do you want to make a deal? Great. That disciple clapped his hands and laughed. He rolled his eyes and told Yun Jichong the price. Others did not know how much this was, but when they saw the slight change in Yun Jichong's expression, they naturally knew that it was not a small number. Sure enough, Yun Jichong transmitted his voice again. After a while, they seemed to have reached an agreement. When Yun Jichong took out his storage bag and was about to hand it over to that person, Wang Yunxiao and the other two quickly walked out from the pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect. When Fairy Hongxia saw people coming out from the pavilion, her eyes flickered. However, when she saw that they were unrelated people, she shifted her gaze away. She did not linger and walked to another place. Junior sister, junior sister. Yun Jichong held the jade ruby that he had just exchanged and chased after her. As he walked he shouted, I have exchanged for the jade ruby. What do you think? However, Fairy Hongxia only turned her head slightly and reached out her hand to take the jade ruby. After looking at it for a while, she handed it over without saying a word. Junior sister, this is what you want. What's wrong? Is it not to your liking? Yun Jichong did not take it seriously and kept the jade ruby. He smiled and said, It's okay. There are many things in this square. There must be something that you like. At this moment, a few disciples who looked like elegant young masters came over. The one in front was not inferior to Yun Jichong. When that disciple saw Fairy Hongxia, his eyes lit up. He walked a few steps forward and cupped his hands. I am Su Fu from the Immortal Ascension sect. Greetings to this fairy. Chapter 1609. Seeing this, Fairy Hongxia looked at Su Fu from head to toe. She didn't want to talk to him, but then she remembered that they were all disciples from different sects who came to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. She cupped her hands and said, I don't deserve to be called fairy. Then, she walked past Su Fu without introducing herself. However, Su Fu raised his hand and stopped Fairy Hongxia. He smiled and said, Don't worry, Fairy Hongxia. They are Wu Qiming and He Shoujing from my sect. They are two of the most powerful cultivators in Meng Kingdom. They would like to share their experiences with Fairy Hongxia. Then the two disciples beside Su Fu walked in front of Fairy Hongxia and blocked her way. They cupped their hands and said, I've heard of Fairy Hongxia's name for a long time. Now that I've met you today, you really live up to your reputation. The path to immortality is long and we cultivators should help each other. Since Fairy Hongxia has come to Meng Kingdom, we should be the hosts. Looking at his attitude, it was almost as if he was a hooligan in the mortal world who took liberties with women. Fairy Hongxia could not help but be taken aback. She had never met such a shameless cultivator. Naturally, before Fairy Hongxia could say anything, Yun Jichong stepped in front of Fairy Hongxia and sneered, I've heard of the reputation of the Immortal Ascension sect even though I'm far away in Xi. I never thought that the disciples of the Immortal Ascension sect would be so shameless as to block the way. I am talking to Fairy Hongxia. What does that have to do with you? Su Fu narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jichong. You're just a disciple of Qi Refining Level 12. How dare you be so arrogant in Meng Kingdom? Yun Jichong snorted. I'm a disciple of Qi Refining Level. Are you a senior of Foundation Establishment Level? I don't want to. Su Fu waved his hand and pointed at Fairy Hongxia. Just as he was about to speak, a cold snort came from behind him. Then, an extremely cold pressure enveloped Su Fu and the other two disciples. A voice so cold that ice could fall from it said, A good dog doesn't block the way. A bad dog that blocks the way. I just arrived in Meng Kingdom and I've already met such a vicious dog. Tai Ching sect is really useless. If you have any grudges, take them out during the Feather Immortal duel tomorrow. Why are you doing this? Ai's eyes are tainted for no reason. Su Fu, Wu Qiming, and He Shoujing were terrified. They did not even have the strength to turn around. Yun Guichong and Fairy Xianxia looked up and saw a young cultivator with a head full of white hair. His face seemed to be frosty as he slowly walked over. He was actually a Foundation Establishment senior. Needless to say, this Foundation Establishment cultivator was Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction, who had made a breakthrough in the Liqing treasure mirror. "Greetings, senior." Fairy Xianxia, Yun Guichong, and the others immediately bowed. Li Zongbao nodded his head and scanned the crowd. His gaze lingered on Fairy Xia's face for a moment longer before he walked past them. "My fellow cultivator." After Li Zongbao left, Yun Guichong quickly grabbed a disciple of the Utopia faction behind Li Zongbao and asked in a low voice, "Who is this senior?" The apprentice of the Utopia faction smirked and said proudly, "Who else could it be? Naturally, I'm the youngest Foundation Establishment cultivator in the cultivation world." Li Zongbao of the Utopia faction? Yun Guichong could not help but exclaim. But then he realized it was inappropriate and quickly said with a smile, "So it's Senior Li of the Utopia faction. No wonder, no wonder." The apprentice of the Utopia faction did not blame him and followed Li Zongbao. After Li Zongbao left, Su Fu and the others could naturally move their hands and feet. At this time, the three of them were not in the mood. They looked at each other and left dejectedly. Fairy Xianxia straightened up and looked at Li Zongbao's tall and straight back, who was gradually disappearing into the crowd. She saw his striking white hair and her eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. She thought to herself, the youngest Foundation Establishment cultivator? That's not necessarily true. After that, Fairy Xianxia also lost interest and went back to the pavilion alone. On the morning of the second day, as soon as a corner of the rising sun appeared from the east, the moving sound of music could be heard from within the radiant realm. Soon after, countless celestial birds flew up from the surroundings of the square and began to dance gracefully. The sky was overflowing with all kinds of colors, and it was extremely gorgeous. The 12 cultivation sects of the Shi state, the Lian state and the Meng state stood on 3 sides of the square, respectively. The apprentices of the Tai Ching sect stood below the high platform at the head of the square. A thunderous sound rang out, and from the eastern side of the square, a beam of orange light rose into the air. From the light, more than 20 people slowly flew over. They were the main envoys and vice-envoys of the various sections. The first to fly over was a cultivator in the later stage of the Golden Core realm. He was not tall and had 2 extremely long eyebrows. He was holding a golden horsetail whisk in his hand. The cultivator flew to the sky above the high platform and landed slightly. He said loudly, "I, Deming, am here to welcome all the disciples of the various sects to the feather immortal meet of the Tai Ching sect." The apprentices did not dare to be negligent. They all bowed and said in unison, "Greetings, Senior Deming." Deming swung the horsetail whisk. In the square, the 200 or so apprentices all felt as if they were supported by a pair of hands. They slowly straightened up. Then, Deming said with a smile, "The Foundation Establishment stage is the first checkpoint on the path of cultivation. It is also the beginning of the true cultivation. I also started my cultivation from the Qi refining realm. Naturally, I know how difficult it is. Although all of you are Qi refining realm cultivators, the heavy responsibility of the future development of each sect is on your shoulders. Maybe in a few hundred years, one of your apprentices will be like I and achieve the Golden Core realm. Then, he will stand in the sky and say the same thing to the Qi refining disciples. I don't have much to say. I only hope that all of you will remember that the path of cultivation is never a smooth one. Thank you for your guidance, Senior." The apprentices bowed again and said. Then, Deming flew back a little. Another cultivator of the Tai Ching sect flew forward. He was an early Gold Core realm cultivator. That cultivator waved his hand and said, "I, Ren Zhu, am the host of this feather immortal meet. This time, 294 apprentices of 13 cultivation sects from the Meng country, the Lian country, and the Shi country will participate. Just like the previous feather immortal meets, you will be divided into 8 groups to compete. For the sake of fairness, the disciples of the same sect in each group will not fight each other. Therefore, if you win, you will get 3 points. If you lose, you will get no points." Ren Zhu spoke frankly and confidently, explaining the specific rules of the competition. Xiao Hua and the apprentices of the Thunder Controlling sect were in a corner of the square. They did not listen attentively. He had already made preparations. As soon as he got on the stage, he would check the cultivation of his opponent and then be ready to admit defeat at any time. This kind of experience was not very beneficial to him. Moreover, he would have to pay with his life. It was really not worth it. He did not understand why Qian Diheng, whose cultivation was only in the middle of the 12th level of the Qi refining realm, was so keen to come to the Feather Immortal meet. The Tai Ching sect is really generous. Just the compensation is Foundation establishment pills. What an unexpected gain. Xiaohua thought to himself as he closed his eyes slightly to comprehend the Buddhist sense concealment method that he had just obtained yesterday. At this time, Ran Zhu's voice came again. For apprentices will be selected from each group. A total of 32 apprentices will enter the final competition. These 32 apprentices will be randomly arranged in a random order. There can only be one winner in each competition. Then, the 16 apprentices who won will be arranged in a random order again. In this way the first, the second, and the second, the third, and the third. Just like in the past, the first 32 apprentices of the Feather Immortal meet will be rewarded. The first, second, and third will be rewarded with magic treasures, cultivation methods, and magic tools respectively. The first has the right to choose first. The second will be ranked after the first. The last two apprentices will have to depend on luck. After Ran Zhu finished explaining the general rules, Ran Zhu flew to the side and waved her hand. A strange brilliance appeared on the high platform below her. However, the item within the formation was still not revealed. Ran Zhu said with a smile, "This is a novel item that my Tai Ching sect has recently obtained. It is specially taken out as a reward for the Feather Immortal meet this time. After the top 4 apprentices of the Feather Immortal meet are ranked, the top 32 apprentices will compete to obtain this item. Whoever wins in the end will obtain this item. As for what this item is, please allow me to keep you in suspense. I will reveal it in the final competition." Keeping me in suspense? Xiaohua shrugged and laughed inwardly. Dao Jing is like this, and Ren Zhu is also like this. Why are all the cultivators of the Tai Ching sect so interesting? Alright, disciples, although the rewards of the Feather Immortal meet are generous, breaking through to the Foundation establishment realm is your ultimate goal. Therefore, this Feather Immortal meet is the same as before. Life and death are not allowed. Moreover, the illusion of the competition will not be opened before the time limit is up. If any of you feel that your strength is insufficient, you can activate your magic tablet and choose to give up when the illusion is opened. Also, any disciple who can break through to the Foundation establishment realm during the competition must immediately withdraw from the Feather Immortal meet. Oh, there is a time limit for the competition? Xiaohua was stunned. He was prepared to give up as soon as he entered the illusion. Once there was a time limit, he had no choice but to give it his all. At this moment, a brilliant sword light suddenly flashed from outside the square and pierced towards Ran Zhu. Ah! All the apprentices in the square saw this and couldn't help but gasp. They thought to themselves, which cultivator is so arrogant? He actually dares to sneak attack a gold core cultivator in front of so many other cultivators? When they looked at Ran Zhu again, there was no fear on her face. Instead, there was a kind of astonishment and a kind of joy. She just stretched out her hand and pinched casually. That sword light was not what the apprentices thought. It was easily pinched by Ran Zhu. Then, a clear voice came from the sword light. Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong of the Xianxia sect of the Huan country are here to pay a visit to the fellow cultivators of the Meng country, the Lian country, and the Shi country. A flying sword message? A disciple of the Heavenly Thunder Palace in front of Xiaohua suddenly exclaimed. This is a sword cultivator of the Huan country. Then, the knowledgeable apprentices in the square all whispered to each other. Sure enough, Ran Zhu looked back at Deming and said loudly, "It has been a long time since a sword cultivator of the Huan country participated in the Feather Immortal meet. My Tai Ching sect is really lucky to have a sword cultivator here today. Let us welcome the disciples of the Xianxia sect." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and the sword light flew back. However, a moment later, 2 even more resplendent sword lights, one green and one purple, shot through the air and flew into the air above the square. Chapter 16:10. When the sword light retracted its brilliance, what appeared was 2 small and exquisite female cultivators dressed in tight clothes on the 2 flying swords. The 2 female cultivators were intimidating, like unsheathed swords. The clothes of these two female cultivators were naturally different from what Xiaohua usually saw. Their entire bodies were short and did not have the slightest bit of burden. The appearance of their clothes was also strange, and there were faintly some runes flashing from different places. Looking at the two female cultivators, they had snow-white skin, graceful figures, and a head full of black hair that was neatly coiled on top of their heads. This wasn't the most eye-catching thing. What surprised everyone the most was that the two female cultivators had the same figure, the same clothes, and even their bright eyes and white teeth were the same. They were actually a pair of twin sisters. When the two stood there, they looked exactly the same. The two female cultivators activated the sword light under their feet and came in front of Ran Zhu and the others. They bowed and saluted. Juniors Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong greet the seniors. Ran Zhu and the others raised their hands to return the salute. Then, Ran Zhu looked at them and said curiously, "I am Ran Zhu, the host of the Feather Immortal Assembly this time. I have a question that I want to ask." Juniors Zhang Yuhe answer the senior's question. The female cultivator on the left said quickly with a smile, "I see that your cultivation is only at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, which should be the same as my early stage foundation establishment disciples. Why didn't I see a teacher protecting you, and you came all the way to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly of the Three Kingdoms of Cultivation? This seems different from before." Zhang Yuhe answered without hesitation, "Although we are at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, in terms of fighting power, we might not lose to your sect's middle stage foundation establishment disciples. Why can't we come to Meng country with such cultivation?" Renjueoer chuckled. "The attacks of sword cultivators are the envy of us cultivators. However, the distance from the state of Huan to here is more than 10,000 kilometers. Although the two of you have the strength of middle stage foundation establishment, you were able to safely arrive at my Taiqing sect. Although you are both at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, representing the sword cultivators of Huan country with only 2 disciples at the first stage of the drawing sword realm, I'm afraid it's disrespectful to the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. It's also difficult to protect the dignity of sword cultivators, right?" Just as Zhang Yuhe was about to speak, the female cultivator who had been silent all this time pulled her arm and said softly, "Junior Zhang Yutong greets Senior Ran Zhu. The two of us didn't come here especially to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, and we only came here to watch the show after we heard the news. We really don't dare to represent our sect or sword cultivators. Senior, please forgive my elder sister's words." "Oh, I see," Ran Zhu was enlightened. She smiled and said, It's fine. Even though the sword cultivators of the Huan Nation and the 3 nations of cultivation cultivate different daos, you are still juniors. Since you are able to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly, I still welcome you on behalf of the Taiqing sect and the 3 nations of cultivation. Are you 2 little friends here to observe? Or do you want to participate in the competition?" Fight! Zhang Yuhe immediately said, "I have long wanted to see the means of the disciples of the 3 kingdoms." "Elder sister." Zhang Yutong quickly stopped her and said to Ran Zhu with an apologetic smile, "Actually, Senior, we came to Meng country for something important, and we happened to run into the Feather Immortal Assembly. That's why we came here to ask for your help." Hearing that Zhang Yutong and the others had something to ask, Ran Zhu didn't dare to make a decision. She turned to Deming. "Ran Zhu, you will host the Feather Immortal Assembly. My 2 little friends, please follow I." Deming waved his hand and led Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe to the pavilion next to the square. Ran Zhu said loudly, "Disciples, please take out your identity cards. The illusion array for the competition is right on the square. The place where your identity cards go will be the place where you will participate in the competition." After saying that, Ran Zhu made a gesture toward a place in the square. Pang, pang, pang. Hundreds of sounds were heard. On the square, nearly 100 tricolored lights flew out from the grids in different places. Each of the lights was in the shape of a round ball. The lights were overflowing, and the situation inside couldn't be seen clearly. As soon as Xiaohua took out his identity card, he saw a round ball in the distance. It turned into a beam of light and flew in front of Xiaohua, crashing into his identity card. Xiaohua knew that the illusion array he was going to enter was inside that round ball. At the same time, hundreds of lights crisscrossed on the square. The identity cards of each disciple were connected to the round ball by the corresponding light. When the disciples walked to the front of the round ball, all the lights converged, and the overflowing of the round ball also stopped. The inside of the round ball was either a white cloud, a blue sky, or a vast plain. There were many different scenes. Standing next to Xiaohua was a dark and thin cultivator. His eyes, nose, and ears were very small. He looked like he was in his 20s, but his cultivation was already at the peak of the 12th layer of the qi refining realm. I'm afraid he also took a youth-preserving spirit herb. Xiaohua secretly said in his heart. Seeing Xiaohua looking at him, the cultivator slightly narrowed his eyes. His originally small eyes were almost invisible. Disciples, you just need to stand in front of the illusion array. A light bridge will immediately guide you to enter. The time limit for the competition is half an incense stick. During this time, you can't enter or exit the illusion array. Just as Ranju's words fell, the round ball emitted a bright light. A thick beam of light shot out from the round ball and covered Xiaohua and the disciple next to him. Then, the two figures flew into the round ball. After their figures disappeared, two figures about the size of mung beans appeared in the blue sky and white clouds. Xiaohua was drawn into the sphere by the bridge of light. Seeing the sphere getting bigger and bigger, Xiaohua knew that his figure was getting smaller and smaller. When his vision blurred, when he looked again, there was a boundless sky in front of him. White clouds floated around him, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in front of him was also abundant. Where's that cultivator from just now? Xiaohua's heart was moved. He clapped his hands and several defensive yellow talismans appeared in his hands. He urged his magic power to hit his body and then released his Buddhist sense. Sure enough, in a place extremely far away, the dark and thin cultivator also released his divine sense and carefully searched for Xiaohua. Seeing that the divine sense was about to sweep over, Xiaohua smiled in his heart and thought to himself, this poor Taoist doesn't want to have a meaningless fight with you. Go ahead and search, this poor Taoist won't keep you company. Thinking this, Xiaohua used the hibernating thunder escape and quickly flew to the other side, wanting to avoid that cultivator's divine sense. However, Xiaohua only flew for a moment before a bright barrier blocked him. The barrier was soft but very firm. Needless to say, this must be the edge of the illusion array. Then, Xiaohua flew all the way down. This time, he flew a bit longer than before, but still, he didn't see any land, only a layer of bright barrier. Damn it, why is this illusion array so small? Xiaohua cursed in his heart. He wanted to go to another place to take a look, but the cultivator's divine sense had already caught up. Seeing Xiaohua, the cultivator's face showed a trace of a sinister smile and transmitted a message. Fellow Taoist, are you trying to escape? Seeing that he was discovered, Xiaohua didn't panic. He flew into the air and cupped his hands, saying, You can't say that I'm trying to escape, I just want to fight. If you don't want to fight, then why did you come to the Feather Immortal Assembly? The cultivator sneered. However, with your cultivation in the early stage of qi refinement, if you don't have any life-saving methods, you really shouldn't come to the Feather Immortal Assembly. In our eyes, you're just a point for us to enter the top 32. Fellow Taoist, it's good that you know. Xiaohua cupped his hands. When the time limit is up, I will immediately withdraw from the illusion array. Fellow Taoist, good plan. The cultivator gave a thumbs up, but then mocked. Fellow Taoist, don't you know that no one is allowed to fight in the Feather Immortal Assembly? If I just sit here and chat with fellow Taoist, when the time limit is up, I and fellow Taoist will be removed from the Feather Immortal Assembly. Xiaohua was helpless. He clapped his hand and took the white dust in his hand. He smiled bitterly. It seems that I have no choice but to fight? The cultivator's movements weren't slow either. He held a 1-foot-long magic artifact in his hand and sneered. The Feather Immortal Assembly has such a rule precisely to dispel people like fellow Taoist who try to pass off as genuine. My Tai Ching sect has worked so hard for so long and spent so much effort to hold this Feather Immortal Assembly. How can it be over just because you're here? Fellow Taoist, please report your name. I am Xiaohua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Let's see if fellow Taoist's methods are as sharp as your words. Xiaohua chuckled. I am He Yuan of the Tai Ching sect. After the dark and thin cultivator finished speaking, the magic artifact in his hand shook. A phantom escaped from the stick and flew in front of Xiaohua in the blink of an eye, smashing towards Xiaohua's forehead. Xiaohua also formed a seal in his hand, urging his spiritual power to also throw the purgatory dust into the air. At this time, the purgatory dust was in the shape of a round ball. It spun in the air and emitted an earthy yellow brilliance, sucking the surrounding spiritual energy of the world into the ball. As Xiaohua pointed with his finger, a large ball of light flew out from the earthy yellow brilliance, blocking the incoming phantom. Pang! The rod's shadow collided with the ball's brilliance. Both of them turned into specks of light and slowly drifted down from the sky. He Fengyuan was somewhat surprised. His magic tool was a replica of Tai Ching-sek's famous magic tool, Tai Yi Green Light Rod. It was called Tai Yi Green Light Rod. Although it couldn't compare to Tai Yi Green Light Rod, its power was not small. This first rod was admittedly meant to probe, so he only used 50% of his magic power. According to He Fengyuan's thinking, he should have at least destroyed Xiaohua's magic tool and broken Xiaohua's defense a bit. How could it be blocked so easily? Looking at the white dust above Xiaohua's head, a trace of greed flashed in He Fengyuan's eyes. Needless to say, Xiaohua was only at the initial stage of Qi refinement realm and dared to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. This magic artifact was his greatest reliance. Look at Ai's methods. He Fengyuan laughed loudly and activated his magic power. The Tai Yi green light stick seemed to be very heavy in his hand. Without moving an inch, a light green phantom appeared. After dozens of phantoms appeared, He Fengyuan waved his hand and sent out another hand seal. Those dozens of phantoms actually formed a strange formation and attacked Xiaohua. Chapter 16:11. Do you think I am afraid of you? Xiaohua saw this and was slightly angry. He pointed his finger and the black dust gradually sped up, creating rings of phantoms around it. He Fengyuan, on the other hand, sneered as he recovered his Fa Li at the side. When others saw this pile of phantoms of his, they would use their artifacts to deal with them. Actually, He Fengyuan himself knew that these dozens of phantoms had an extremely mysterious connection, and could seal off all of the opponent's dodging angles. If he could not find the trick and get rid of the few crucial phantoms, the opponent could only be flustered, unable to attend to one thing and lose sight of another, and in the end up being beaten to death. Xiaohua's movements were not slow either. He repeatedly used the speck dust and grabbed a lot of light from the speck dust. Each light was able to destroy a phantom. But just as Fengyuan expected, Xiaohua could not find the trick to dealing with the sky full of rod phantoms. He could only use the earthen yellow light to deal with the different rod phantoms. Puff, puff, puff. A series of sounds rang out. Under Xiaohua's control, the dozens of phantoms created by the black dust barely blocked the dozens of staff phantoms. With Xiaohua's current Buddhist sense, he could barely do it. Junior brother Xiao is indeed extraordinary. Seeing the first wave of staff phantoms broken by Xiaohua, He Fengyuan was even more shocked. These were dozens of phantoms, and Xiaohua was able to use so many lights to deal with them in such a short time. It showed how extraordinary his divine sense was. Now look at Ai's methods. He Fengyuan once again activated his magic power. Xiaohua couldn't counterattack, and the dozens of staff phantoms once again flew out, attacking like a tidal wave. Humph! Xiaohua saw this and knew that although the black dust's counterattack could be effective for a while, if it continued for a long time, he could only be in a defensive position and wouldn't be able to take the initiative. The opponent would eventually find a flaw and defeat him. Thus, he didn't activate the black dust. With a wave of his hand, dozens of top-grade fireball talismans were taken out. He activated his magic power and guided by his divine sense, they pounced on the dozens of phantoms. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Heat waves surged around Xiaohua, but an astonishing scene appeared. After the heat waves passed, not many of the staff phantoms were destroyed by the fireball talismans. There were still many staff phantoms flying towards Xiaohua from all directions. This is bad. Xiaohua's heart went cold when he saw the shadow in front of him. He didn't know that this Tai Yi azure light was of the metal attribute and was extremely sharp. It was also a magic tool, so its brilliance was able to block the shadow of the staff. Although the fireball talisman was powerful, it was still a yellow talisman. Its attack couldn't be concentrated, so the Tai Yi azure light could easily dodge it. What should we do? Xiaohua was startled, and he hurriedly made a hand seal. The white dust above his head once again emitted an earthen yellow brilliance that enveloped Xiaohua. At the same time, He Fengyuan's dozens of rod shadows had already struck down. Puff, puff, puff. Each time the staff shadow struck Hengchen's brilliance, the brilliance would waver slightly and be extinguished a little. By the time the staff shadow struck Hengchen's brilliance, 30% of the brilliance had already been extinguished. This still wasn't the worst. Just as the Tai-E Azure Light Staff phantoms disappeared, He Feng Yuan's magic tool had already been brandished. The third wave of staff shadows had already arrived before Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua simply didn't have any chance to activate Hengchen to meet the attack. He could only passively defend. Xiao Hua's forte lay in close combat. Admittedly, his magic power surpassed He Feng Yuan's, but his magic tool was inferior. Moreover, he had lost the initiative, so after one wrong move, every step was wrong. Seeing the third wave of staff shadows arrive, Xiao Hua instantly made a decision. He simply ignored the staff shadows and allowed them to hit his body with crackling sounds. His body flew up and waved his hand. Just as he was about to take out the spirit crow fire net, a light shadow as thick as a bowl appeared out of thin air. It was precisely the white dust above Xiao Hua's head. That white dust swayed twice, and the earthy yellow brilliance around Xiao Hua's body immediately withdrew, all of it being absorbed into the white dust. Xiao Hua was immediately exposed within the staff shadows. He Feng Yuan, this bastard. He actually had this move. Xiao Hua was shocked. How could he still care about taking out the fire net? He hurriedly pointed his finger at the Hengchen again. With a puff sound, a shadow struck Xiao Hua's back. The yellow talismans that Xiao Hua had sent out earlier were all broken. Xiao Hua's body swayed as if he had lost his balance. At this time, another shadow attacked Xiao Hua's waist from another angle. Humph! He Feng Yuan, who was far away, unconsciously showed a trace of joy on his face. He gritted his teeth and waved the Tai-E Azure Light Staff several times. Numerous phantoms appeared and pounced on Xiao Hua one after another. An initial stage Qi refinement brat dares to come to the Feather Immortal Assembly. It is your honor to be treated so seriously by I. He Feng Yuan seemed to have expended a lot of energy to activate the artifact. He took out a pill from his storage bag and ate it. He was about to close his eyes and adjust his breathing when the scene in front of him made him dumbfounded. Xiao Hua, who had lost his balance, was about to be hit in the waist by a shadow. But at this crucial moment, Xiao Hua's body twisted strangely. He simply didn't use any magic power and easily dodged that shadow. Immediately after, Xiao Hua's body became even more graceful, even more carefree. In the air, it was as if he was taking a stroll, dodging the overwhelming rod shadows one by one. In He Feng Yuan's eyes, there were no gaps in the rod shadows, but Xiao Hua took a step to the left, a step to the right, a step up, a step down, finding countless gaps. Moreover, Xiao Hua's footsteps went from unfamiliar to smooth, becoming more and more skillful with each step. Ethereal steps. The name of this footwork appeared in Xiao Hua's mind. This ethereal step seemed to be something that Xiao Hua had already recalled in Jingbo City, and gradually recalled it in the battles afterwards. And today, in front of He Feng Yuan's strange rod technique, he had finally completely recovered it. This. He Feng Yuan had never seen such a mystical footwork. Moreover, in his divine sense, there was not a trace of magic power fluctuation on Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua got out of the encirclement of the staff shadows and scanned with his divine sense. He snorted coldly. Senior brother He, after seeing your methods, shouldn't you see I's methods? Before he finished speaking, Xiao Hua suddenly flew over and arrived in front of He Feng Yuan at an extremely fast speed. He also stretched out his hand and took out a pitch-black staff, smashing it towards He Feng Yuan's head. Although Xiao Hua was casually swinging the staff, it was different in He Feng Yuan's eyes. This staff seemed to have solidified the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth, as if this staff was born to smash He Feng Yuan's forehead. A kind of fear arose from the bottom of He Feng Yuan's heart. Without thinking, He Feng Yuan also waved the artifact in his hand. Dozens of phantoms shot out again, meeting Xiao Hua's demonic spear. Come! Xiao Hua shouted loudly, the demonic spear in his hand not changing its downward momentum. Puff puff puff. Dozens of sounds rang out in succession. That Tai green light staff's phantoms were smashed apart by the demonic spear like bubbles. With a loud bang, the demonic spear struck the Tai green light staff's main body. An incomparably huge force transmitted over. He Feng Yuan's hand felt a burst of heat. No matter what, he could no longer hold on to the Tai green light staff. His hand loosened and he was sent flying by Xiao Hua. He Feng Yuan was horrified. He turned around and hurriedly used his magic power to escape. At the same time, his other hand was not slow either. A ring was held in his hand, and under the activation of his magic power, a three-colored brilliance burst out, about to envelop him. How could Xianxia allow him to protect himself? Activating the hibernating thunder escape, Xianxia instantly caught up to He Fengyuan. The demonic spear swung and struck He Fengyuan's back. With a pang sound, the tricolored brilliance that had just appeared was dispersed by Xianxia, and the demonic spear also struck He Fengyuan's back. "It hurts!" He Fengyuan screamed loudly. A mouthful of blood spurted out from his mouth as his entire body was sent flying by Xianxia. If it was a battle of magic power and artifacts, He Fengyuan could still contend for victory with Xianxia. But now that Xianxia had closed in on him, He Fengyuan could only be casually crushed by Xianxia. "Eat this young master's staff again." Xianxia sneered. The demonic spear struck out like a staff again, this time aiming at He Fengyuan's forehead. Seeing the pitch-black staff in Xianxia's hand stirring up the heaven and earth spiritual energy in the air, instantly enlarging in front of He Fengyuan's eyes. He Fengyuan's eyes unconsciously shrunk as a feeling of his liver and guts being torn apart involuntarily emerged. At the same time at this moment, He Fengyuan felt that death was so close. In just a breath's time, his decades of hard work would turn into water, all of his dreams would turn into bubbles. He Fengyuan felt a sense of powerlessness facing Xianxia. His heart was dead. But at this moment of life and death, He Fengyuan suddenly had a strange feeling. The surrounding primeval qi abruptly turned sluggish as his heart died, and then began to show signs of condensing. Foundation establishment. He Fengyuan actually showed signs of foundation establishment at the moment of his death. Sigh, unfortunately, it is already too late. He Fengyuan smiled bitterly. Because Xianxia's demonic spear was already on He Fengyuan's forehead, He Fengyuan could almost feel the merciless coldness of the spear. But right at this moment, Xianxia stopped. The moment the demonic spear struck He Fengyuan's forehead, Xianxia's hand stopped firmly like it was cast from iron. Soon after, Xianxia's gentle words entered He Fengyuan's ears. "Senior He, this junior only came to the Feather Immortal Assembly to gain some experience. I have no other plans. Do you believe me now?" He Fengyuan had just escaped from death, and this was the crucial moment of foundation establishment. How could he dare to delay for even a moment? He only had time to say, "Many thanks," and quickly put a foundation establishment pill into his mouth. Immediately after, a three-colored cloud descended from the sky, wrapping around He Fengyuan and sending him out of the illusion formation. Sigh. Seeing He Fengyuan leave the illusion formation, Xianxia sighed. Seeing He Fengyuan's lifeless expression and the desire in his eyes, Xianxia could not help but think of his eldest senior brother Xiangyang. He could not help but feel pity and could not help but put away the demonic spear in his hand. After all, he could not bear to kill a cultivator who had worked hard for decades and was about to reach foundation establishment in his own hands. What a huge loss. Xianxia shrugged. "I don't know if this He Fengyuan will bear a grudge, otherwise I would have found myself a mortal enemy for no reason." "That's right, that guy's magic artifact has not been taken away. Since I picked it up, it naturally belongs to me. That guy probably does not have the face to ask me for it back." Thinking of this, Xianxia hurriedly released his Buddhist consciousness and searched for the tiny green light rod that was sent flying in the illusion. Outside Xiaohua's Naiwen Palace, the Buddha's relic with one hand pointing to the sky and the other pointing to the earth was still an illusory outline. The Buddha's light that appeared out of thin air where the heart was did not attract Xiaohua's attention at all. Chapter 16:12. When Xiaohua contentedly found the tiny green light rod, he activated his tablet and left the illusory formation. The area around him was already filled with Tai Ching sect disciples. Naturally, He Fengyuan had broken through to foundation establishment in the first round of the competition. This was a highlight of the Feather Immortal Assembly. How could it not attract the attention of Tai Ching sect disciples? However, when they saw a mere qi refining stage cultivator emerge from the illusory formation, their previous admiration turned into jealousy. Was there even a need to explain further? He Fengyuan's cultivation level was definitely high and he broke through in the illusory formation. It had nothing to do with Xiaohua. Xiaohua was just a lucky kid in these disciples' eyes. Xiaohua saw the disdain in the disciples' eyes when he came out. They dispersed immediately. How could he not know the reason? Seeing that there was no trace of He Feng Yuan, he must have been taken away by Tai Ching sect's teachers to a quiet place to establish his foundation. Xiaohua snorted coldly and sat down cross-legged, waiting for the second round of the competition. Xiaohua! A gentle voice resounded. Xiaohua heard it and quickly stood up. It was Jianghu who was walking over slowly. This area was where Imperial Thunder Sect's disciples were fighting. Jianghu naturally knew the dangers within. She was especially attentive towards Xiaohua and the other disciples with weaker cultivation. Earlier when she saw He Feng Yuan come out, her heart jumped. She was afraid that Xiaohua's corpse would be thrown out by the illusion formation. Only when Xiaohua flew out himself did she relax. "Greetings to Ancestor Zhen," Xiaohua said. No need to be so polite." Jianghu waved her hand. "Take the time to rest. There are 4 battles every day. Your cultivation level is slightly lower. You need to be careful." "Disciple understands. Disciple will leave after 15 minutes. Xiaohua said without hesitation. Jianghu nodded. "Good. Of course, this experience was good, but it also required one's life. With your cultivation level, you really shouldn't participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly. You need to use your flying technique more." Xiaohua smiled bitterly. "It is not that disciple doesn't want to use it, but the space inside the illusory formation is too small. It seems to restrict flying techniques." Jianghu pondered for a moment and said softly, "The purpose of the Feather Immortal Assembly is to test a cultivator's temperament in a life-and-death situation. If they have intelligence, they will find the opportunity to establish their foundation. You must have seen that Tai Ching sect's disciple suddenly established his foundation. That was why you escaped death. Oh right. Do you need to repair your defensive artifact? I can lend you a hand?" Xiaohua felt warmth in his heart. He bowed. "Thank you, Ancestor Disciple." While he was speaking, the illusory formation beside Xiaohua suddenly flashed with a blood-red brilliance, and with a whoosh sound, a corpse with half of its head smashed was thrown out by the formation. Jianghu's expression changed greatly. She ignored Xiaohua and walked over quickly. A few Tai Ching sect's disciples who were patrolling the surroundings also rushed over. The face of the corpse was already blurred, so they couldn't see whether it was a Tai Ching sect's disciple or not. Fortunately, the corpse's clothes were still intact, and it didn't seem to be someone they knew. Jianghu's expression relaxed a bit. Then the ball of the illusory formation flickered a few more times, and a female cultivator in the late stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm flew out. When Xiaohua took a closer look, he found that it was Li Xiaoxiao, a disciple of the Thunder Palace. At this moment, Li Xiaoxiao's face was a bit pale. She sat down cross-legged the moment she landed on the ground, took out a medicinal pill, and ate it, then closed her eyes to adjust her breathing. Jianghu waved her hand, and a restriction formation surrounded Li Xiaoxiao. The Tai Ching sect's patrolling disciple examined the corpse's Dharma tablet, muttered a few words, and sent out a summoning talisman. Not long after, an early-stage foundation establishment disciple of the Tai Ching sect and Kunlun sect's Han Zhu quickly walked over. Han Zhu looked at the corpse with a gloomy face and nodded slightly. Then the early-stage foundation establishment disciple grabbed the corpse's storage pouch, reached into it, and took out some jade slips and a magic tool from the storage pouch, then handed them to Han Zhu, and then handed the storage pouch to Jianghu. Jianghu didn't say anything. She just raised her hand and took it. Han Zhu took the jade slips and magic tool, waved his hand, and put them into the storage pouch together with the corpse of the Kunlun sect's disciple. He raised his head and glanced at the crowd, then turned and left. Xiaohua, who was watching from the side, already understood that Li Xiaoxiao won this battle and killed the Kunlun sect's disciple, so the storage pouch of the Kunlun sect's disciple belonged to Li Xiaoxiao. However, the cultivation methods and magic tools inside still had to be returned to the Kunlun sect. As for the pills, yellow talismans and other items inside the storage pouch of the Kunlun sect disciple, they were probably the prize of this battle. All the rules of the Feather Immortal Assembly encourage the participating disciples to kill. It's no wonder that He Feng Yuan didn't compromise with Xiaohua thought to himself. But in his heart, he was thinking about that meaningful glance Han Zhu had given him when he left. Others might have thought that Han Zhu had given him a casual glance, but Xiaohua knew that Han Zhu had given him that glance. As for whether it was a warning, encouragement, or something else, Xiaohua didn't know. Immediately Xiaohua had a strange thought. This Han Zhu. He gave the golden puppet to me so generously. Could it be that he knew I would definitely win? But then, Xiaohua laughed involuntarily. How could Han Zhu know he would definitely win? It would be good if he could survive, but if he died, the golden puppet would definitely be handed over to Imperial Thundersex Zhen Qing, and Han Zhu only needed to find a reason to exchange for it, right? This was probably the reason why Han Zhu wanted to find him after the Feather Immortal Assembly, right? Why is Han Zhu looking for me? Xiaohua pondered again. De Ming sat cross-legged in a rather large quiet room in a large pavilion to the north of the square. He seemed to be deep in thought. Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong had a trace of anxiety on their faces. They seemed to be waiting for De Ming's answer. However, when Zhang Yuhe saw De Ming's lowered eyebrows, she could not help but say, "Senior De Ming, I've already explained the cause of the matter. I wonder if the Tai Ching sect can lend a hand?" De Ming blinked his eyes and smiled. "I have already sent a message to my sect leader. Before I receive a reply, I'm afraid I can't say anything casually." "What do you think, Senior?" Junior only wants to hear Senior's opinion. Zhang Yuhe continued. "This." De Ming pondered for a moment and said with a smile. "After all, you two came here on your own, not on behalf of sword cultivators, not on behalf of the Shenzhen sect, so my Tai Ching sect won't help you in the name of Tai Ching sect." Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong were extremely disappointed. They looked at each other, and Zhang Yutong said slowly, "Junior knows your sect is in a difficult position, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass can only be found in the Dark Yin illusory realm of Meng Kingdom. How can we enter the Dark Yin illusory realm with our cultivation? So we can only ask for help from the Tai Ching sect. Senior De Ming, please be merciful." De Ming shook his head slightly. "I don't know why you two want the Dark Yin spiritual grass, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass has few uses, and it is said that it is only useful for female cultivators with Dark Yin body. Therefore, my Tai Ching sect won't take a great risk to pick the Dark Yin spiritual grass. What's more, the Dark Yin spiritual grass grows in the most dangerous place in the Dark Yin illusory realm. Doesn't the Tai Ching sect have the Dark Yin spiritual grass?" Zhang Yuhe asked directly. "It's not that we don't have it," De Ming said with a smile. "My Tai Ching sect has also cultivated some Dark Yin spiritual grass, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass can only grow in the Dark Yin illusory realm, where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is extremely abundant. It doesn't germinate easily in other places. My Tai Ching sect has only cultivated a dozen Dark Yin spiritual grass." "Great." Zhang Yuhe clapped her hands and said, "Senior, why don't you exchange one of them for I?" De Ming smiled bitterly. "I can't make the decision. It depends on the sect leader's order. Also, you two asked for 3,000 years of age, but the Dark Yin spiritual grass in my Tai Ching sect is at most 500 years old. Senior, is there really no way?" Zhang Yuhe asked with a bitter face. "What can I do?" Zhang Yutong stared at De Ming for a while and said with a smile, "Senior De Ming, you are a person of virtue and prestige, which is what I admire. Don't lie to me and my sister. What we want is the Dark Yin spiritual grass, not the Dark Yin spiritual grass. There are many powerful cultivators in the Tai Ching sect. The Dark Yin illusory realm is one of the top 10 dangerous places, but the Tai Ching sect must have the Dark Yin spiritual grass from the Dark Yin illusory realm. We have traveled thousands of miles, so of course, we have enough sincerity to ask for the Dark Yin spiritual grass. As long as your sect can take out the Dark Yin spiritual grass of enough age, we will definitely take out the corresponding things to exchange for it. Be careful with your words." De Ming didn't take it seriously. He waved his hand slightly and said with a smile, "Your cultivation is not bad, but if others hear it, it may be a little troublesome." Zhang Yuhe said proudly, "If Senior De Ming, a gold core stage cultivator, bullies me and my sister, we are naturally inferior. But other cultivators? Then it depends on our means." "Yes, thank you for your reminder, Senior." Zhang Yutong said, "We have our own means to protect ourselves, and, to tell you the truth, if something happens to us, the masters of the Shen sword sect will be the first to know. Whoever did it will also be reported to the sect." At that time, Zhang Yutong's words had a double meaning, and De Ming laughed it off after hearing it. While they were talking, the restrictive spell in the quiet room flashed slightly. De Ming waved his hand and a dark red messaging talisman flew into his hand. De Ming crushed the messaging talisman and closed his eyes to listen for a moment. Then he looked at Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong's expectant eyes and said with a smile, "My sect leader has ordered that although you two are not sword cultivators, you are still guests from afar. If I can help you, I will naturally help you." "Thank you, Senior." "Thank you, Master Qing Su of the Tai Qing sect." Zhang Yutong couldn't help but bow her hands and say. But Deming still shook his head. "My two little friends, don't be anxious." "What? Could it be that your sect leader's order? Senior doesn't want to." Zhang Yuhe was anxious. Deming smiled bitterly. "My two little friends, didn't I say it just now? Even if my Tai Qing sect has the Xianyin spiritual grass, it definitely doesn't have the 3,000-year-old medicinal age that you want." "It can't be. 3,000 years. It's really not that long." Zhang Yuhe's disappointment was obviously piled up on her face. Chapter 16:13. Zhang Yutong looked a little disappointed. She smiled apologetically and said, "Senior Deming, actually, the Xianyin spiritual grass that we are looking for is at least 3,000 years old. The most suitable one should be at least 4,000 years old." Sigh. Deming couldn't help but gasp. He smiled bitterly and said, "Our Tai Qing sect only has one Xianyin spiritual grass that is 2,000 years old. It was found in the Xianyin Mirage by an elder of our sect. If this one doesn't meet your needs, I'm afraid that we won't be able to find a Xianyin spiritual grass of this age in the entire Meng Kingdom. It seems that we have to go to the Xianyin Mirage." Zhang Yutong sighed. She looked at Zhang Yuhe. Both of them were thinking the same thing. There was a trace of decisiveness in their eyes. "My two little friends." Deming quickly waved his hand and said, "The Xianyin Mirage is not a place that you can enter. Even I don't dare to enter. I'm afraid that you won't be able to come out." Although Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe had never been to the Xianyin Mirage, they had heard about the 10 most dangerous places. Naturally, there was such a place in the Huan Kingdom. They knew that there was a slim chance of survival in there. However, both of them were silent at this moment. It seemed that they had already made up their minds. This matter had nothing to do with Deming. However, seeing two young female cultivators throwing their lives into the Xianyin Mirage, Deming couldn't bear it. He thought for a while and said, "How about this? I'll bring the Xianyin spiritual grass from our Tai Qing sect. You can see if it's suitable for you. Then we can make other plans. What do you think?" "Then, thank you, Senior," Zhang Yuhe said weakly. "By the way, Senior Deming." Zhang Yutong blinked her eyes. Her bright eyes were like stars in the night sky. She said in a low voice, "I have a presumptuous request. I don't know if I should say it." Deming smiled bitterly and said, "Of course you can. There are 13 cultivation sects from the 3 cultivation countries participating in the Feather Immortal Conference. Do they have the Xianyin spiritual grass? My two little friends, did you think of the Xianyin spiritual grass because of the Feather Immortal Conference?" Deming said with a smile. "That's right." Zhang Yuhe nodded. Junior thinks that since there are so many people here, there might be someone who has this spiritual herb. Deming smiled bitterly in his heart. He knew very well that these disciples were all at the qi refining stage. Who would have a 3,000-year-old profound Yin spirit grass? Even if he did, why would he carry it with him? As long as he was killed, the spirit grass would definitely belong to someone else. Even if he hid it in his own sect, he couldn't bring it to the Tai Qing sect. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of building their foundation at any time, those late-stage aura refining disciples definitely wouldn't have brought even a single foundation establishment pill. However, how could he bear to shatter their beautiful hopes? He pondered for a moment before he said, "The disciples of the various sects are participating in the Feather Immortal gathering now. How about this? I'll tell the group leaders of the various sects about the two of you and see if they have any methods?" "Thank you, Senior." Zhang Yutong bowed. "If anyone has a 3,000-year-old spirit grass, let them come over. My sister and I will definitely thank you," Zhang Yuhe said anxiously. Hearing this, Zhang Yutong's heart skipped a beat. She smiled apologetically and said, "Senior Deming, I still have a request. About the spirit grass. Please don't make it clear. Firstly, my sister and I don't want to cause any trouble. Secondly, we don't want others to have any scruples. Don't you think so?" Deming nodded to himself. That was the reason. If he directly stated that he wanted a 3,000-year-old profound Een spirit grass, there would definitely be others who coveted the two sisters. Even if someone really had a 3,000-year-old profound Een spirit grass, they wouldn't be so tactless as to show it to others. You're right, Yutong. I will arrange this. Deming stood up and said, My two little friends are guests from afar. You should take a rest. I will take my leave now. Farewell. Senior. Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong quickly stood up. Senior, can we see the grand occasion of the Feather Immortal gathering? Zhang Yuhe asked timidly. Looking at Zhang Yuhe's lovely appearance, Deming smiled kindly and said, Of course. You sword cultivators have participated in it before. You can learn from each other and improve yourselves. Thank you, Senior. Zhang Yuhe shouted excitedly. Then she pulled Zhang Yutong and said, Let's go, sister. Let's go and watch the show. When Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong walked out of the pavilion with Deming and arrived at the square, there were only Tai Ching sect's disciples on duty. There were also the sect leaders and vice-sect leaders. They were looking at the different illusory formations with solemn expressions. After the first round of competition, other than that Feng Yuan, no one else had broken through. Moreover, out of the 13 sects, 3 of them had lost disciples. Not only did they lose pills, spirit stones, and yellow talismans, they also lost a lot of face. At this moment, Xiao Hua was standing firmly on a grassland. About 100 feet away from him, there was also a late-stage Qi refinement 12th-stage female cultivator. That female cultivator was Black Heaven Sect's Zhu Beibei. She had an extremely hot body and was wearing a Taoist robe that Xiao Hua usually wore. Many parts of her body revealed her fair skin. Xiao Hua's gaze could not help but fall on certain parts of her body. Cough cough. Fellow Taoist Zhu. Xiao Hua's gaze moved to Zhu Beibei's tender face. He smiled apologetically and said, I came to the Feather Immortal Assembly to gain experience. I have no other intentions. I will exchange a few moves with senior sister. When the time is up, I will leave the illusory formation. How can it be so simple? Zhu Beibei sneered and waved her hand. A shiny silver lute appeared in her hand. With a flick of her slender fingers, a pleasant sound reverberated in the air. Sound attack? Xiao Hua frowned. He was laughing in his heart. He was from the myriad Thunder Valley of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Although he had only been in the Imperial Thunder Sect for a few years, he had been taught the soundless thunder technique. If he could avoid even the sound of thunder, how could this so-called Pipa be inferior to him? Senior Sister Zhu, don't push me too far. Xiao Hua looked strong on the outside but weak on the inside. He shouted in exasperation, How can this poor Taoist be your opponent? Humph, since you're here, you should be prepared. Zhu Beibei sneered, and the magic power in her hand surged. Ding ding dong dong. The sound waves attacked Xiao Hua in circles. Xiao Hua only felt dizzy, and his whole body was out of his control, as if he was a puppet being controlled by someone. Seeing that Xiao Hua was under her control, the corners of Zhu Beibei's mouth revealed a trace of ridicule. Although they were both in the 12th layer of the aura refining realm, she was well aware of the difference between the late stage and early stage. Back when she was in the Profound Sky sect, she had used this method to defeat over 100 middle stage aura refining disciples during the same disciple selection. She was very confident in the might of her magic tool. The sound of the pipa continued to entangle Xiao Hua. His limbs seemed to be dancing along with the sound of the pipa. Of course, Xiao Hua's long limbs didn't look very good. Even Zhu Beibei couldn't help but laugh. She said to herself, This kid is really clumsy. He wants to come to the Feather Immortal Assembly to take advantage of others? Fortunately, he met me. I'll spare your life today. However, with this level of cultivation, even if he doesn't die today, he'll die tomorrow. Sigh. I really don't know why he came here instead of cultivating in the thunder-controlling sect. As Zhu Beibei spoke, she didn't dare to stop playing the pipa. Then, she slowly walked to Xiao Hua. She patted her hand and took out a confinement talisman from her storage pouch. She casually activated it with her magic power. It hit Xiao Hua's body and immediately confined him. Zhu Beibei used her divine sense to sense that Xiao Hua's magic power was confined. Only then did she stop playing the pipa. Then she waved her hand. It seemed like she wanted to take away the storage pouch on Xiao Hua's waist. However, after she waved her hand a few times, the storage pouch was tied very tightly. She couldn't take it away. This guy is so stingy. Could it be that there's something good in the storage pouch? Zhu Beibei smiled like a flower. She seemed to have forgotten to be on guard. She quickly stepped forward, reached out, and took the storage pouch. When she looked inside and saw that the storage pouch was almost empty, she couldn't help but spit on the ground. She cursed. What a poor and pedantic guy. As expected of someone at the early stage of the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. Zhu Beibei hadn't finished speaking when a voice came from beside her ear. Big sister, you can't insult your little brother like this, right? That voice was right beside her ear. She could even feel the heat from Xiao Hua's mouth. Zhu Beibei stared blankly at first. Then, her soul flew out of her body. She really didn't expect that Xiao Hua, who she already regarded as a puppet, could actually speak so easily. Moreover, after being confined by her magic tool, he was also confined by the confinement talisman. Zhu Beibei's entire body trembled at first. Then, like lightning, she was about to flee outside. Being so close to Xiao Hua, Zhu Beibei had a feeling of insecurity for no reason. Unfortunately, how could she be as fast as Xiao Hua? Just as her figure flew into the air, Zhu Beibei felt a huge force coming from behind her neck. It was precisely her neck that was choked. In an instant, a numb feeling attacked her whole body. Moreover, this force was very strange. It was actually able to confine all the true qi in her body, making her unable to use her magic power. Junior brother Xiao, please spare my life. Zhu Beibei no longer cared about her dignity. She loosened her hand and threw the Pipa magic tool on the messy grass. She no longer paid attention to it and shouted with all her might. Junior brother Xiao, as long as you spare I's life, I am willing to agree to any condition of junior brother. Xiao Hua licked his somewhat dry lips and said with a smile. Senior sister Zhu, aren't you tempting me? Everything in this illusion formation can be seen from the outside. Zhu Beibei's face flushed red. She didn't think that Xiao Hua would say this. She could only clench her teeth and say with difficulty, If it's possible, senior sister can. Huh? Senior sister can give the magic tool and cultivation method to I from the outside? Xiao Hua asked in amazement. You. Zhu Beibei didn't know whether to laugh or cry in her heart. However, at the same time, her heart also relaxed for no reason. Since Xiao Hua said this, she presumably didn't need to use her body to exchange for her life. What's wrong with that? Chapter 16:14. Junior brother Xiao, I'm afraid I can't give you this magical item, and I don't think I can give it to you either. However, I have some foundation establishment pills and a lot of spirit stones in my storage pouch. I can give them to you. Zhu Beibei said carefully. Great. Xiao Hua said with a smile. I don't want the foundation establishment pills. I don't want to disturb senior sister's plan to build her foundation. As for spirit stones and the like, I don't deserve them. Zhu Beibei was overjoyed when she heard this. Being able to use spirit stones to exchange for a life, this was a good thing that couldn't be found even if one held a lantern. Junior brother Xiao, you can take whatever you see in senior sister's storage pouch. Zhu Beibei said very meekly. Xiao Hua looked at Zhu Beibei, who was still in his hand and didn't have the chance to turn around. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. Yes, although he used the lightning evasion technique of Myriad Thunder Valley to avoid Zhu Beibei's sound attack, his disguise was really inferior. Zhu Beibei actually didn't find it hard to notice if she paid a little attention. Zhu Beibei had overestimated her own magic tool. She also overestimated her confinement talisman. Yes, even if he was really restrained, Zhu Beibei shouldn't be too close to him. At least she should use a few more confinement talismans and cast a few more confinement techniques and the like, right? It seems that until the last moment, no one can guarantee who will be the winner. Xiao Hua's heart trembled, warning himself not to make the same mistake in the future. Moreover, having a low cultivation level isn't a shameful thing. At least, it can confuse the opponent and make them lower their guard, right? Xiao Hua's thoughts were also natural. His cultivation level was indeed at the early stage of the 12th level of qi refining. As for the strength of his magic power and the amount of his true qi, it wasn't reflected in his cultivation level. If others used his cultivation level to calculate his magic power, then the difference would be thousands of miles. While thinking, Xiaohua took off Zhu Beibei's storage pouch and took all the medicinal pills except for the foundation establishment pills. He also swept away all the spirit stones. This is... Seeing a half-inch long white bone, Xiaohua's heart moved and asked, Senior Sister Zhu, what is this? This thing is said to be something from Meng Mountain. Senior Sister doesn't know what it is. Zhu Beibei said honestly, Senior Sister, obtained it from someone else. Can you give this thing to little brother? Xiaohua said with a smile. According to the rules of the Feather Immortal Gathering, junior brother Xiao naturally can't take it. Zhu Beibei smiled and said, however, with our friendship, how can senior sister not agree to junior brother Zhao's request? When Xiaohua heard this, he didn't hesitate and put it into his space with a flip of his hand. He said with a smile, many thanks, senior sister. No problem, no problem. Then, little brother loosens his grip a bit and asks senior sister to activate the magic tablet. What do you think? Xiaohua said. These words were like music to Zhu Beibei's ears. She immediately nodded her head like a chicken pecking at rice. Senior sister, please. Xiaohua loosened his grip a little. He reckoned that the true qi in Zhu Beibei's meridians was barely enough to stimulate her transcendence energy, which was enough to activate the magic tablet. He didn't want to fall into the same careless end as Zhu Beibei. After seeing Xiaohua's cautiousness, Zhu Beibei didn't dare to have any other thoughts. She stimulated a trace of transcendence energy and activated the magic tablet. A ray of light flashed, and Xiaohua's hand was empty. Zhu Beibei's figure disappeared from the illusory formation. At the same time Zhu Beibei's figure disappeared, outside of Xiaohua's Naiwen Palace, at the location of the heart of the Buddha relic, another Buddha light appeared out of thin air. However, this Buddha light was slightly dimmer than the previous one. Zhu Beibei leaving the illusory formation naturally caused a burst of surprise from the surrounding Tai Ching sect disciples. After all, the time limit of half an incense stick had just passed. Within the square, besides the cultivator from the Imperial Thunder sect, no other disciples came out. With Zhu Beibei's cultivation at the late stage of the 12th level of the Qi refining realm, there was absolutely no reason for her to be eliminated now. Seeing the gazes of all the disciples, Zhu Beibei was a bit embarrassed and angry. However, her heart immediately calmed down. Fortunately, Xiaohua was kind-hearted, and fortunately, she saw that Xiaohua's cultivation was shallow and her heart softened for a moment. Only then did she save her life. Thinking about how Xiaohua was actually able to easily escape from her confinement talisman under the sound attack, she still didn't know what method Xiaohua used to capture her. Thinking about that unparalleled strength, Zhu Beibei couldn't help but shrink her neck. Her heart still had a lingering fear. Seeing the illusory formation flicker again and Xiaohua seemingly about to come out, Zhu Beibei hurriedly left and walked towards the position of the Profound Sky Sect team leader. Sure enough, when Xiaohua flew out of the illusory formation, he was once again met with the shock of the Tai Ching sect disciples. Of course, an early-stage 12th level Qi refining disciple was actually able to defeat a late-stage 12th level Qi refining disciple. This was something that had never happened before in their knowledge. However, everyone only pondered for a moment before they immediately winked at each other. A man and a woman alone in an illusory formation, and even lost in such a bizarre manner, no matter who it was. Wouldn't their imaginations run wild? Motherfucker, what's there to see? This young master won. Xiaohua stuck out his chest and fiercely glared at the surrounding disciples. Those disciples, however, curled their lips and continued their inspection. Not far away, that Qian Diheng from the Imperial Thunder Sect's Qian Thunder Palace saw that Xiaohua actually won and immediately ran over eagerly. He said with a bashful face, Junior Marshal brother, you seem very familiar. Did you and I meet at the Imperial Thunder Palace? Xiaohua cupped his hands and said with a smile, Senior Marshal brother Qian's memory isn't very good. You and I are both disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, so naturally we met at the Imperial Thunder Palace. This disciple's name is Xiaohua. Xiaohua, which Thunder Palace are you from? Xiaohua's expression was the same as that of the Tai Ching sect's disciple just now. He curled his lips and said to himself, how many Thunder Palaces does the Imperial Thunder Sect have? Everyone met at the Spring Thunder Palace, But this guy actually doesn't know which Thunder Palace this young master is from. Teske, he's a bit of a weirdo. Alright, Senior Martial Brother Qian, this disciple is from the shocking Thunder Palace. Qian Diheng slapped his forehead and pretended to be enlightened. Of course, Junior Martial Brother Xiao is from the shocking Thunder Palace. Now I remember. Hee, Xiaohua laughed and asked, Senior Martial Brother Qian, did you pass these 2 tests smoothly? How can I compare with you? Qian Diheng narrowed his eyes and said with a very wretched smile. You, an early 12th layer cultivator, can actually conquer a late 12th layer female cultivator. This brother is very envious. The word, conquer, was enunciated with unusual emphasis. Xiaohua said unhappily, Senior Martial Brother Qian, don't joke around. This little brother was almost killed. Hee, dying under a peony flower is also romantic. Qian Diheng blinked his eyes. This honor should be given to Senior Martial Brother Qian. Xiaohua said with a smile. Senior Martial Brother left and right should also be in the same group as her. Maybe we'll meet later. AI, don't mention it. Qian Diheng waved his hand and casually sat down. He said weakly, I'm afraid I can only take a beating. If she wants my life, she still needs to cultivate for a few more years. Xiaohua rolled his eyes and asked curiously, Why is that? Why? Qian Diheng rolled his eyes and said, You're the last of the 20 disciples of my Imperial Thunder sect, right? That's right. Then this brother is the second last. As Qian Diheng said this, he patted his chest and transmitted his voice. I originally didn't want to come, but my great-grandfather forced me to come and even gave me a blood sacrifice magic treasure. However, with this magic treasure, only Foundation establishment cultivators can break through my defense. You say, that female cultivator of yours is only at the 12th layer of the Qi refining realm. Can she hurt me? Fine, Xiaohua secretly despised him. He came here to pass off as a fake, but he didn't expect to meet an even more experienced fake who even took out a magic treasure. Junior Martial Brother Xiao, you have to hold on. According to the rules of my Imperial Thunder sect, as long as a disciple participates in the Feather Immortal Assembly, when they return to the sect, they will be richly rewarded. If you can get a ranking, Tesese, I'm afraid that the female disciples of the Earth Thunder Palace and the converted Thunder Palace will all favor you. Senior Martial Brother Qian, you can't be because of this, right? Xiaohua asked in surprise. Nonsense, of course not. As a brother I should aim high. Qian Diheng raised his head and was about to defend himself when the spherical illusion array behind him shook violently. With a flash of brilliance, Sun Shu fell out from it. Sun Shu was wearing a white robe. At this moment, his upper body was soaked in blood and there was a 2-inch long wound on his neck that was still spurting blood. Seeing that Sun Shu fell to the ground and didn't have the slightest strength to get up, Xiaohua's figure flashed and arrived in front of Sun Shu. At the same time, he patted his hand and sent a healing elixir of the Imperial Thunder Sect into Sun Shu's mouth. However, just as Xiaohua sent the elixir into Sun Shu's mouth, the illusory formation behind him flashed again, and another middle-aged cultivator in a brown robe flew out with a ferocious face. This cultivator's body was also stained with blood. As soon as he saw Sun Shu out of the illusory formation, the sharp sword in his hand flew out and stabbed at him. Stop! The nearby Tai Ching sect disciple saw clearly and immediately berated. That middle-aged cultivator simply didn't stop. Seeing that the flying sword was about to stab Sun Shu, Xiaohua was squatting beside Sun Shu at this moment. He also didn't expect that the cultivator would still attack after coming out of the illusory formation. However, Xiaohua's hands and feet were very fast. With a backhand grab, he grabbed the flying sword. Humph! That middle-aged cultivator sneered. The sharp sword immediately flashed with about half an inch of brilliance. It looked very sharp. If Xiaohua grabbed it, he might not be able to keep his fingers. Xiaohua's heart was slightly hesitant, but he immediately made up his mind. The momentum of his palm didn't change. Just as Xiaohua decided to attack, a third Buddhist light appeared at the heart of the Buddha Saraira. This Buddhist light was the same as the first one. With a dang sound, a purple brilliance flashed past Xiaohua's eyes with incomparable speed and hit the sharp sword. With a pu sound, the sharp sword was sent flying by the purple brilliance and fell on the ground of the lattice, deeply stabbing into the ground. Soon after, That purple brilliance was like a spirit serpent, turning around and flying back. Xiaohua was very close to that purple brilliance. He clearly saw that this purple brilliance was a 3-inch-long small sword. Sword Cultivator. Xiaohua's eyes slightly narrowed as he secretly said in his heart. Chapter 16:15. Flying Sword. Sword Cultivator. Xiaohua's heart shook as he thought of the green and purple sword energy that came from outside the bright realm. At the same time, he also thought of the 9 sword pills in his small storage space. By the time Xiaohua raised his head, sure enough, Jianghu was a little further away from them. She had just received the returning violet flying sword and swallowed it whole. How dare you! In front of Jianghu, Imperial Thundersex Zhenqing leaped up and struck out a spell seal. A lightning net appeared out of thin air and quickly enveloped the middle-aged cultivator. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to have exhausted all of his magic power, and was unable to put up any resistance before he was bound by the lightning. Behind Zhenqing, another golden core state cultivator snorted and said, "Fellow cultivator Zhen, what is the meaning of this?" "Fellow cultivator Liao, what do you think I mean? Is this your Chong by Sex disciple? My Imperial Thundersex disciple has already left the illusion formation. Why is he still chasing her?" Zhenqing sneered. The golden core state cultivator was the leader of the Changbai sect, Liao Zhouquan. He waved his hand and also used a spell to release the lightning on the middle-aged cultivator. He said, "Even if my Changbai sect's disciple made a mistake, fellow cultivator Zhen has no right to punish him." As he spoke, Liao Zhouquan had already walked over to Xiaohua and the others. He lowered his head to look at Sun Shu and then at the middle-aged cultivator. He kicked him and cursed angrily, "Lu Weigang, did you eat a leopard's gall? I told you before we came that if my Changbai sect's disciple wants to win, we have to win fair and square. This female cultivator has already left the illusion formation. Why are you still chasing her? Because you know how to use a flying sword? Humph, this is called knowing how to use a flying sword? You really don't know shame." Zhang Yuhe sneered. "Flying swords are the most righteous. We sword cultivators use righteous hearts to nurture and control swords so that flying swords have spirituality. This kind of dirty heart can only be a dead sword. It's a disgrace to the imperial sword technique." "Sister," Zhang Yutong pulled Zhang Yuhe's arm and whispered, "this is the internal affairs of the 3 cultivation countries." "What internal affairs?" "This lady is disgusted to see someone distort the sword intent and only know how to use a flying sword to kill people." Zhang Yuhe continued to berate. Lu Weigong's face was ashen as he stared viciously at Zhang Yuhe. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig your eyes out." Zhang Yuhe shouted. "Wow, just now you were teaching people to use justice to drive their swords, and now you want to use your flying sword to kill people." Xiaohua, who was squatting on the ground, snickered in his heart. "Ah, fellow Taoist Liao." Ren Zhu also walked out from the side and sighed. "This disciple of your sect has violated the taboo of the Feather Immortal Assembly by chasing out of the illusory formation and injuring the enemy. I have no choice but to expel him from the Feather Immortal Gathering this time and face him head-on." Liao Zhouquan nodded and said, "You're right, fellow Taoist Ren. This taboo was agreed upon by all 13 sections. Naturally it has to be kept." After he finished speaking, he kicked Lu Weigang again and scolded, "Go back and pack up. You have 2 hours to get out of the brilliant territory and return to Changbai Peak yourself. When you return to the sect, immediately reflect on your actions." "I won't return. Before the sect decides what to do, you are not allowed to take a single step out." Lu Weigang stood up and lowered his head. He picked up the sharp sword from the ground and said softly, "Disciple obeys." After he finished speaking, he staggered out of the plaza. "How is this, little friend?" Ren Zhu lowered her head and looked at Sun Shu. "Senior, please no. He has already consumed the elixir of our sect. He should be fine." Xiaohua replied. Ren Zhu scanned with her divine sense and nodded. "That's good. Your sect's disciples have all obtained 3 points. Changbai sect's Lu Weigang has been expelled from the brilliant territory, so he will be considered to have forfeited. All the disciples who fought against him will take a break and obtain 3 points directly. Thank you, fellow Taoist, for upholding justice." Zhenqing cupped her hands and said, It's my duty, it's my duty. Ren Zhu waved her hand and turned around to look at Zhang Yutong and Zhang Yuhe. She smiled and said, I have to go and keep watch. Fellow Taoists, please do as you wish. After she finished speaking, she cupped her hands and left. Other than Zhen Qing, the other leaders also left. Zhen Qing was stunned for a moment. Seeing that Sun Shu was fine, she also left. Only Chen Diheng glanced at Zhang Yuhe and Zhang Yutong. He wanted to move closer to them, but he was fiercely glared at by Zhang Yuhe. Only then did he slowly move away. What are these Golden Core Realm seniors talking about with these two disciples of the sword sect? Xiaohua couldn't help but wonder after everyone left. Little junior brother. Is your senior sister all right? Zhang Yuhe squatted down and looked at Sun Shu. She looked at Xiaohua with her beautiful eyes and asked, You are really good. You actually used your hand to catch the flying sword. Don't you want your fingers anymore? Little junior brother? How am I small? Xiaohua touched his nose and looked at the two pure and pleasant sword cultivators. He smiled and said, I didn't think too much at that time. I only felt that if I didn't catch the flying sword, my senior sister's life would be in danger. Do you think I should catch it or not? Resolute, decisive. Zhang Yuhe praised. Kid, you are a good seedling for sword cultivation. This kind of righteous and compassionate heart is the easiest way to get the flying sword's approval. Don't listen to his nonsense. Zhang Yutong reminded, cultivators all have spells. He must have a spell in his hand and a controlling technique. The flying sword can't hurt him. Is that so? Little cultivator? Zhang Yuhe asked curiously. Is it very important? My intentions are all ordinary. Xiaohua said with a smile. Good. Zhang Yuhe clapped and said, Little cultivator, you are very interesting. What is your name? Which sect are you from? I am Xiaohua, a disciple of the Imperial Thunder sect. Xiaohua cupped his hands and said, Xiaohua, your name is good. Zhang Yuhe smiled and said, The Imperial Thunder sect's Dao technique is good. Unfortunately, it is still inferior to my sword cultivation. With your pure heart, if you cultivate my sword cultivation technique, you will definitely shine. Are you interested in betraying your sect? Xiaohua smiled bitterly and shook his head repeatedly. Thank you for your high opinion, fellow Taoists. I don't have any thoughts of seeking a higher branch. When I really can't stay in the Imperial Thunder sect anymore, I will go look for fellow Taoists. Don't. There won't be such a shop after this village. Zhang Yuhe waved her hand and said, This is a one-time deal. If you agree, I will accept you on behalf of my master. A one-time deal? Xiaohua couldn't help but laugh out loud. What kind of analogy is this? Fellow Taoist, don't listen to my elder sister's nonsense. The Imperial Thunder sect's Dao technique is outstanding and is a famous sect in the country of Xi. Fellow Taoist is also fated to be in the Imperial Thunder sect. How can you casually betray your sect? Zhang Yutong saw that Zhang Yuhe was becoming more and more outrageous and hurriedly stopped her. Thank you for your reminder. Fellow Taoist. I won't go so far. TCH, you want to be my disciple, but I won't accept you. Zhang Yuhe curled her lips and said. Xiaohua's heart moved and he said with a smile, If fellow Taoist has the heart, why don't you give me the cultivation method of your noble sect's flying sword and let I comprehend it? You're dreaming. Zhang Yuhe rolled her eyes at Xiaohua and said, You want to learn flying sword, but you don't want to enter my Huanjin sect. How can there be such a good thing? You might as well go and dream. After saying that, she casually said, Otherwise, if you have a 6,000 years old profound Een spirit grass. But before Zhang Yuhe finished speaking, Zhang Yutong stopped her from the side and said, Elder sister. Zhang Yuhe knew that she had said something wrong and hurriedly covered her mouth. Her eyes rolled, and she was very cute. She pointed her finger and said, Xiaohua, your senior sister is awake. Xiaohua lowered his head. Sun Shu still had his eyes closed. When he raised his head again, Zhang Yuhe had already pulled Zhang Yutong away. As they walked, they looked back with a guilty conscience. Who is the younger one? Xiaohua was speechless. Xiaohua, how is Sun Shu? Zhen Qing, who had just left, came over with a few disciples who had just come out of the illusion array. Coincidentally, Sun Shu groaned and slowly opened his eyes. Seeing Xiao Hua beside him, he was very surprised and asked curiously, "Junior brother Xiao, why are you here?" "Me? Why can't I be here?" Sun Shu asked curiously. Xiao Hua could only answer vaguely. "Senior sister Sun." Beside Zhen Qing, Li Xiaoxiao's expression was also not good. She quickly walked over to Sun Shu and helped him up. "Martial ancestor Zhen." Sun Shu saw Zhen Qing and said embarrassedly, "Chongbai sect's disciple called Lu Weigang was too fierce, I couldn't beat him." When he said this, his pale face turned slightly red. It's fine. Zhen Qing's divine sense swept over and knew that Sun Shu was fine. She smiled and said, "Take a pill and rest. That Chongbai sect disciple has already made a mistake and was expelled. You have already taken 3 points. Ah, what happened?" Sun Shu was stunned. "Haha, you should ask Xiao Hua about this." Zhen Qing said, "Moreover, you should thank Xiao Hua for saving your life." This. Sun Shu sat on the ground and looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing some distance away from him. He was even more shocked. "Don't, martial ancestor Zhen. It was obviously that sword cultivator who did it. It has nothing to do with this disciple." "You think I don't know? Even if that sword cultivator didn't do it, could you have let that bastard sword stab your senior sister?" Zhen Qing's gaze was very warm. "Junior brother Xiao, what is going on?" Sun Shu bit his lip and asked. Indeed, she had only met Xiao Hua a few times and was saved twice in such a short time. How could she not be shocked? At this time, the surrounding disciples, including a few from the Heavenly Thunder Palace, were all looking at Xiao Hua curiously. They looked at this disciple who had just reached the early stage of the 12th Qi refining realm. They didn't even put him in their eyes. Xiao Hua scratched his head and had no choice but to tell them what happened just now. The Imperial Thunder Sect disciples were furious. The tall and thin Qian Hong and Qian Mo couldn't help but curse. This Chongbai sect disciple is really shameless. He actually chased out of the illusion formation to assassinate. If it wasn't for junior brother Xiao, even if that bastard was dealt with, junior sister Sun's life wouldn't have been saved. Junior brother Xiao, you did the right thing. I didn't think that you would dare to face a late-stage 12th Qi refining disciple with your cultivation. I really admire you. Qian Peng even patted Xiao Hua's shoulder and said, "In the future, if you have any problems in the Imperial Thunder Sect, feel free to look for this elder brother. There's nothing to say. Based on your benevolence and righteousness, this elder brother can help you." Chapter 16:16. Sun Shu's eyes were filled with gratitude, but there was also a lingering fear, and a trace of uneasiness. Xiao Hua saw that everyone was pushing all the credit to him and throwing all the blame to Lu Weigang. He didn't even ask why Lu Weigang was so furious that he chased out of the illusory formation to kill Sun Shu. He could only rub his nose and smile apologetically. This is what I should do. Senior sister Sun Shu is everyone's junior sister, and also I's senior sister. If I didn't save her, I would be destroyed by the heavens and the earth. However, this is the Feather Immortal Assembly, and there are 2 more rounds today, both of which are life and death matters. I's cultivation is just for show. Senior brothers, you still have to prepare to find a good opportunity to build your foundation. Everyone's face turned cold when they heard Xiao Hua mention the competition. Of course, it was necessary to care for one's fellow disciples. They also had to have the opportunity to care for others. Now that every round was a life and death battle, how could they not take it seriously? Everyone comforted him and sat cross-legged on the side. They took pills and closed their eyes to adjust their breathing. Xiao Hua was about to leave when Sun Shu said in a low voice, "Junior brother Xiao. Thank you again." "Haha, it's nothing," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "I was still thinking about the benefit senior sister gave me." Sun Shu knew that Xiao Hua didn't think so, so she forced a smile and nodded at him. She also took out a pill and took it. The 3rd round of the competition was probably going to start soon. Senior sister Sun. Xiao Hua looked at Sun Shu and took half a step forward. He said in a low voice, "Senior sister, you're seriously injured. If you can't do it, you can just forfeit the next round." "Why do you have to do this?" Sun Shu smiled bitterly. All the disciples who come to the Feather Immortal Assembly are aiming for that moment of life and death, to be able to gain some enlightenment and find a chance to build their foundation. If they have the freedom to forfeit, who would be afraid? Who would go all out? Who would be able to build their foundation under such pressure? Therefore, there is only one chance to forfeit in this Feather Immortal Assembly, and that is to withdraw from the Feather Immortal Assembly. I just finished 2 rounds. It's really too early to withdraw now. Then he looked at Xiaohua and said, I heard that the disciple who fought against you in the first round was lucky enough to reach the foundation establishment stage. I am very envious. Stepping into the foundation establishment stage so smoothly without going through a test of life and death, there hasn't been a single person like that in several Feather Immortal gatherings. What? Xiaohua said in his heart, if it weren't for I being kind, how could that guy build his foundation? I'm afraid he's already cultivating in the underworld. However, he didn't explain. He pointed at Sun Shu's bloody clothes and said, Then, senior sister, you should at least change your clothes, right? Oh, all right. Female cultivators had always been fond of beauty and cleanliness. How could Shu be an exception? However, at this time, her chi and blood were both damaged, making it difficult for her to walk. She wanted to wait until she recovered before returning to the pavilion to change her clothes. Now that she heard Xiaohua's words, she glanced at Li Xiaoxiao, who was circulating her internal energy, and said with a smile, Junior Martial Brother Xiao, please help me. With a smile on his face, Xiaohua confidently raised his arm and said, Senior sister's orders, how could I dare to disobey? Sun Shu almost wanted to cover his mouth and laugh. So sour. After saying that, Sun Shu supported Xiaohua's arm and stood up. Senior sister, don't move. Little brother will take you back. After saying that, Xiaohua formed an incantation gesture with his other hand and grabbed Sun Shu's waist out of thin air. With a slight lift, Sun Shu's feet left the ground. Xiaohua quickly brought Sun Shu back to the pavilion. Actually, Junior Martial Brother should regulate your breathing more. Didn't you say it yourself just now? Sun Shu felt a bit uncomfortable and tried to find something to say. However, when she said that, she felt a bit strange. Xiaohua's attention didn't seem to be on her. When she turned her head to look, she saw that Xiaohua was looking into the distance with a slightly dazed expression. Sun Shu was surprised. When she looked up, she saw that in the distant square, there were also 2 people walking out. These 2 people were a man and a woman. The man was as handsome as jade, and the woman was as beautiful as a fairy. Sun Shu had seen these 2 people before. They were Yun Jiechong and Fairy Xianxia from the Rinsing Flower sect. Fairy Xianxia and Yun Jiechong had also seen Xiaohua and Sun Shu from afar. Fairy Xianxia first looked at Xiaohua, then quickly swept her gaze over Sun Shu. After that, her eyes turned and looked elsewhere. Sun Shu very sensitively sensed that in Fairy Xia's gaze, there was a trace of hostility. The moment Fairy Xia's gaze flashed, Sun Shu also sensed that Xiaohua's hand, which had been as steady as a rock, trembled slightly. This tremble didn't matter, but it directly shook Sun Shu's heart. She. Sun Shu inexplicably felt an indescribable feeling. Fairy Xia's gaze swept over, and Yun Jiechong's gaze naturally followed. Yun Jiechong's gaze was still warm, like the rising sun. However, he didn't come forward to greet them, but only nodded slightly. There was only warmth in his gaze, and there was only warmth. There wasn't a trace of surprise, nor was there a trace of joy. Sun Shu didn't speak, and neither did Xiaohua. Fairy Xianxia looked ahead with a cold face, and Yun Jiechong also looked ahead with a smile. The 4 of them almost brushed past each other, and didn't even make eye contact. Walking back to the pavilion, Sun Shu opened the door of the quiet room, and said in a low voice, I have changed my clothes, and am preparing to rest in the quiet room. If Junior Brother Xiao is still thinking about the 3rd match, you can go back first. Xiaohua nodded slightly, turned around, and left. Sun Shu held the door of the quiet room with his hand. There was a kind of desire in his heart, a desire that Xiaohua could stay outside his quiet room. It seemed that with him around, he would only feel safe. When Xiaohua's figure disappeared, Sun Shu shook his head with a bitter smile, and thought to himself, what's wrong with me? Not to mention Fairy Xianxia, even Xue. I seem to. Then, Sun Shu entered the quiet room and opened the restriction. Xiaohua couldn't say what he was feeling. Fairy Hongxia's gaze kept flashing before his eyes, as if he was an irrelevant person, a transparent person. What's wrong with me? Xiaohua scratched his head. The more he didn't think about it and ignored Fairy Hongxia, the more he thought about that beautiful face and that gaze that used to be filled with concern. There were already many disciples in the square, but the third round of matches still hadn't started. Xiaohua looked at the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect, who were already sitting cross-legged with their eyes closed, and thought to himself, perhaps it's to give the disciples a chance to rest. Therefore, Xiaohua also found a place to close his eyes and cultivate. As time passed, even Xiaohua, who didn't want to fight, started to feel anxious. What's wrong? He frowned. According to the rules of the Feather Immortal gathering, it was impossible for them to rest for such a long time. As expected, after Xiaohua stood up, a moment later, not far from his right, an illusory array in a grid emitted a dark red brilliance, and countless noises came from there. What's wrong? Xiaohua secretly scanned the area with his Buddhist awareness, which he didn't dare to release. In the dark red grid, in the middle of a group of disciples, 2 badly mutilated corpses fell to the ground. At this moment, there were 3 cultivators standing in front of the corpses. One was Ren Zhu from the Taiqing sect, another was Li Mingqing, the leader of the Shenghua sect, and the last one was Xie Hui, the leader of the Utopia faction. The 3 of them looked serious. Ren Zhu scanned the 2 of them with her spiritual sense, and then she raised her head and asked, "Fellow cultivator Li, your disciples have lost their vitality. What do you think?" Li Mingqing nodded, but didn't answer. "What about fellow cultivator Xie?" Ren Zhu turned her head and asked Xie Hui, "Your disciples have also lost their vitality?" "Alas, yes. This kid." Xie Hui sighed slightly. Although it's important to build their foundation, they need to be alive to do so. The time limit of 15 minutes has passed. It's fine if they give up first. Why do they have to be so stubborn? That's right. Our original intention of holding the Feather Immortal Assembly was to allow the disciples to find a trace of opportunity to build their foundation through the competition, but not to let them fight with their lives on the line. Li Mingqing also sighed. The eyes of the surrounding disciples were also filled with pity, but more of it was as if they had experienced the same sorrow, as if they were in the same situation. Actually, sometimes, expectations are also a kind of burden that can't be borne. Ren Zhu, who was enforcing the rules impartially, also sighed. Sometimes, don't we put too much pressure on the disciples? Li Mingqing, Xie Hui, and the rest were silent. Beside them, Zhen Qing, Xiong Fei, and the rest were also deep in thought. But, if they don't build their foundation, how can they be considered as cultivators? If they don't build their foundation, wouldn't the decades of hard work of cultivation be wasted? A voice was heard. Xiaohua looked over and saw the white-haired Li Zongbao. We cultivators are already nature-defying. If we don't go against the current, we will definitely be washed to the bottom of the valley. Using our bodies to seek Tao, using our lives to question the heavens, isn't that what we pursue? If we don't have such thoughts, what's the point of building our foundation, the gold core stage, and the nascent soul stage? Li Zongbao's voice wasn't loud, but it was powerful. Ran Zhu and the rest also realized that this was the Feather Immortal meet. Although it was a pity that the disciples of the Utmost Happiness faction and the Highest Glory faction perished together, if the hundreds of disciples were discouraged and couldn't make any progress on the path of cultivation, wouldn't it be a waste of effort? The sins of the gold core stage cultivators would be great. Therefore, Ran Zhu clapped her hands and laughed. Li Zongbao, you are indeed the most intelligent person in the 3 kingdoms of cultivation. Only such wisdom in seeking Tao can comprehend your sect's parting mirror. After hearing what you said, I believe that in the near future, fellow cultivator Li will appear in the ranks of the gold core stage cultivators. Li Zongbao. He is Li Zongbao. It is said that he is only in his 20s, but he is already a senior in the foundation establishment stage. He is really powerful. Yes, it is said that the parting mirror is also a famous cultivation method of the Utmost Happiness faction. It can cut off all worldly desires and achieve supreme Tao. But, why did Senior Li's hair turn white so early? It seems that, when he just came to the Bright Realm, his hair didn't turn white. Of course, It is because he is cultivating the parting mirror? Without worldly desires, what's the use of a physical appearance? Only with such a pure heart can one achieve Tao. The disciples started to discuss spiritedly, and their low spirits were stirred up again. Ren Zhu saw that the time was right and hurriedly waved her hands. Disciples, the third round of the competition is about to begin. I hope that everyone can follow Li Zongbao's example and think more carefully and understand more. We will strive to have more foundation establishment stage cultivators. Chapter 16-17. The second round of the competition ended with the last pair of disciples dying together. Presumably, these two people's fates would alert the others and prevent them from doing anything stupid. Soon, the third round of the competition began. When Xiaohua was pulled into the illusion formation by the Dharma token, there were no disciples from other sects waiting nearby. Xiaohua was still muttering in his heart. Was the person he was going to face this round, Lu Weigang, who had just been expelled from Hao Domain? If it was this guy, wouldn't Xiaohua get a bye? Could he get all 3 points without making a move? Unfortunately, Xiaohua had just entered the illusion not long ago. Before he could clearly see the lush mountain forest under his feet, not far away, a bright ball of light flashed by. A middle-aged cultivator with a medium height and a very tall and sturdy figure walked out from the brilliance with his hands behind his back. Xiaohua's lips curled into a smile as he cupped his hands. However, before he could finish speaking, the middle-aged cultivator smashed the hand hidden behind his back and laughed sinisterly. I know you are a disciple of Imperial Thunder Sect. Prepare to die. An emerald green bamboo-like magic artifact flickered as it flew into the air, instantly enveloping Xiaohua within the emerald green light. Ah! Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't dare to be negligent. With a wave of his hand, the witch dust was held in his hand. With a push of his magic power, the witch dust flew above Xiaohua's head. Without waiting for the witch dust's brilliance to scatter, the middle-aged cultivator had already prepared a spell seal on the magic artifact. With a rumbling sound, fist-thick and 3-meter-wide green wooden strips appeared around Xiaohua and rolled towards him. Xiaohua didn't have time to activate the witch dust's brilliance, but seeing these numerous green wooden strips, he didn't panic. He sneered. Where did this wild brat come from? You actually don't dare to report your name? This middle-aged cultivator's magic artifact seemed similar to He Feng Yuan's Tai Green Light Rod. Since Xiaohua could move freely under Tai Green Light Rod, he naturally didn't care about these green wooden strips. Rumble! Following the rolling sound of the green wooden strips, Xiaohua's figure swayed freely within the green wooden strips. Every time, he would inadvertently dodge an attack that appeared out of nowhere. The middle-aged cultivator seemed to have never seen such a dodging method before. He sneered, Imperial Thunder Sect disciples have always been so cunning. What kind of demonic technique is this? You're a disciple of the Changbai sect? Xiaohua abruptly came to a realization, and he instantly understood why the middle-aged cultivator had long since concealed his magic tool and flew into the illusory realm. This fellow's intention was precisely to leave his life within the illusory realm. Xiaohua's eyes gradually narrowed, and the anger in his heart grew stronger. It's just this kind of insignificant skill, and you want to take my life? Xiaohua sneered. Haha, a kid in the early stage of the 12th layer dares to talk to me like that? The middle-aged cultivator laughed and said, I'm afraid that I'm the only one who can easily complete this task. Mission. Xiaohua's heart went cold when he heard this, and he instantly understood that the disciples of the Changbai sect and Lightning Control sect would probably fight to the death in this round. As he spoke, the middle-aged cultivator changed his hand seal again, and the green wooden strips that rolled down from Xiaohua's head suddenly spread out in all directions, and like a flood, they rolled down towards Xiaohua from all directions. Come at me! Xiaohua didn't seem to be nervous at all, and his ethereal steps became even more proficient. His body shuttled back and forth between the green wooden strips, leaving behind afterimages. This time passed very quickly, and seeing that the time limit of half an incense stick was about to be up, the middle-aged cultivator was afraid that Xiaohua would escape from the illusory realm, so he clenched his teeth and spat out a mouthful of blood, which landed on the bamboo-shaped magic tool above Xiaohua's head. There was a burst of crackling sounds, and the brilliance was exceptionally bright. When the brilliance gradually returned to normal, There were faint traces of dark red within the emerald green light. Go! The middle-aged cultivator formed a spell with both hands, and the bamboo-shaped magic tool gradually disintegrated, turning into a dozen emerald green jade strips within the brilliance, and those jade strips began to slowly rotate within the brilliance, and the rotation path was very mysterious. The middle-aged cultivator's magic tool began to change, and Xianxia, who was covered by the magic tool, couldn't help but be dumbfounded. The green wooden strips that were just as thick as a fist actually gradually expanded to become as thick as an arm, and then they continued to change. In the end, they actually turned into thick green wooden strips that an adult couldn't wrap around with both arms. Previously, Xianxia was still able to move freely and easily within the gaps between the green wooden strips, but now, countless huge green wooden strips were colliding with each other, creating huge rumbling sounds. How could there be any gaps for Xianxia to use the ethereal steps? What should I do? Xianxia clapped his hands, and first wanted to take out the demonic spear, but when his eyes saw the green wooden strips emitting boundless green light, Xianxia suddenly came to his senses. With a wave of his hand, he took out the spirit crow fire net. Xianxia didn't dare to be negligent, and just as he took out the fire net, he immediately urged his magic power, casting the fire net in midair. The spirit crow fire net flew up in clumps, and as the fire net unfolded, the surrounding fire attribute spiritual energy was gradually sucked into the surroundings. Seeing strands of flames appear on the fire net, Xianxia laughed loudly. I'll let you, this ruffian, experience this young master's methods. Subsequently, a dozen fist-sized fire crows flew out from the spirit crow fire net, and flames curled around their bodies. They flew towards the green wooden strips that were already pressing down on Xiaohua's head. Boom! Like dry wood meeting a raging fire, the green wooden strips immediately combusted. Within the flames, the rolling green wooden strips gradually disappeared, and once again turned into green gas, disappearing between heaven and earth. Hee. Xiaohua looked at the surrounding green wooden strips that fell into the flames, and coldly laughed. Using fire to restrain wood, he should have thought of this earlier. Haha, ignorant child. You think you can escape this old man's green wooden array like this? The middle-aged cultivator in midair also sneered. You're nothing but a child at the early stage of the 12th level of chi refining. As he spoke, he once again urged his magic power. Within the green light, even more and thicker green wooden strips came down with even greater momentum. Xiaohua's dozens of fire crows were immediately submerged in the green light transformed from the green wooden strips. Ignorant old man. Xiaohua was furious, and similarly waved his hands. Several spells struck the spirit crow fire net, and 70% of his magic power was poured into it. The spirit crow fire net was suffused with extremely beautiful flames. Caw! Caw! Several fire crows cried out in succession. This time, unexpectedly, only 9 fire crows flew out from the spirit crow fire net. However, this time, the 9 fire crows were countless times stronger than the previous dozens of fire crows. Moreover, within the flames of these fire crows, there was a faint purple color. Boom! Several loud sounds rang out. It was the sound of the fire crows crashing into the green wooden strips. The green wooden strips looked very large, but when they collided with the 9 fire crows, they immediately combusted. The burning green gas was also ignited by the flames. However, in a few breaths of time, within several zhang of Xiaohua, all of the green wooden strips were ignited. Ah! These fire crows actually have samadhi true fire? The middle-aged cultivator vaguely saw the purple color on the fire crows and knew things were bad. Pang! Another sound rang out. Within the green light emitted by the magic tool, a figure covered in flames came out. It was Xiaohua, who had escaped. Xiaohua rushed out of the green wooden array, seemingly without stopping. Urging his magic power, his figure quickly flew towards the middle-aged cultivator, preparing to kill this old man. So fast! The middle-aged cultivator was slightly surprised, but he wasn't nervous. He slapped his hand and took out a crimson-red rope from his storage pouch. He threw it into the air. The red rope was thin and short, just like the red headband a little girl usually used to tie her hair. However, as the middle-aged cultivator's magic power spread out, the rope grew with the wind. In the blink of an eye, it became a long rope like a python. Why does this old man have so many magic tools? Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He pointed his hand, and the black dust above his head emitted an earth-yellow brilliance that protected Xianxia. Fortunately, Xianxia had urged the black dust in advance. Just as the brilliance protected Xianxia, the python-like long rope circled in the air and fell towards Xianxia. It seemed to want to bind Xianxia. Seeing the long rope fall, Xianxia hurriedly dodged. The long rope seemed to have intelligence. No matter how Xianxia dodged, the long rope circled around him. Helpless, Xianxia used his flight technique, wanting to fly away. However, after flying for about 10 feet, the flight technique that Xianxia was so proud of was caught up by the rope, and Xianxia was tied up without any explanation. Fortunately, Xianxia now had the protection of the black dust's brilliance. The long rope could only bind the brilliance and couldn't truly land on Xianhua's body. However, even so, Xianxia faintly felt that the magic power in his body was somewhat stagnant. Moreover, the protective brilliance of the black dust also began to faintly flicker. It seemed that the long rope was also attacking the brilliance. What should I do? Xianxia was somewhat at his wit's end. He wanted to withdraw from the illusory formation, but he felt unwilling in his heart. The spirit crow fire net was restrained by the greenwood formation and temporarily couldn't be used. He wanted to use the Samadhi True Fire, but he was afraid that the long rope wouldn't be afraid and he would instead reveal his trump card in advance. Alas, I still don't have enough magic tools. Xianxia was now somewhat regretful. He shouldn't have coveted the fragments of magic treasures and sword pellets. Damn it! If the black dust is broken by this long rope, I'm afraid this young master will first be bound by the long rope. At that time, how will I have the power to fight back? Whatever trump card, whatever Samadhi True Fire, they won't be of any use. Xianhua's mind sobered up. He extended his left hand and a streak of Samadhi True Fire emerged from his palm, burning towards the long rope. You really know how to use Samadhi True Fire? The middle-aged cultivator shouted in disbelief. The expression on his face, which was already not relaxed, became even more dignified. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, then pointed his finger. The long rope very nimbly flowed around the brilliance around Xianhua's body, preventing it from being burned by the Samadhi True Fire. As for himself, he stretched out his hand and untied a pouch from his waist. He chanted an incantation and waited for a moment before opening the pouch. A pitch-black strange insect that looked like a centipede but was completely different flew out from the pouch. Spirit storage pouch? Spirit insect? Xianxia had always been paying attention to the cultivator's actions. When he saw that the cultivator was actually able to release a strange insect, he didn't care about using fire to burn the long rope and turned pale with fright. Chapter 16:18. Ever since Xianxia saw the spirit husbandry sect disciples use the spirit storage bag to release Fei Qing, he had never seen a cultivator use the spirit storage bag again. Naturally, he knew how precious this spirit storage bag was. Furthermore, he had also seen the power of Fei Qing. He knew that as long as a cultivator used a spirit beast, it would be an extremely powerful one. He had no choice but to raise his vigilance. The strange insect flew into the air and became bigger and bigger in a ball of black gas. Xianxia could clearly see that this strange insect was like a centipede. It had a body that had more than 10 segments, but it didn't have as many legs. Furthermore, the head that was flying towards Xianxia was a ball of black, like an extremely hard shell. It was impossible to see its face clearly. The most eye-catching thing was the 2 antennae on top of its head that were like clamps. The antennae were very sharp, and the tip revealed a cold light that was close to a sword. The strange insect twisted its waist, and a faint black gas was released. It let out a kind of hoarse sound, and in the blink of an eye, it flew to within 3 feet of Xianxia. Xianxia didn't dare to be negligent. He waved the Samadhi True Fire with one hand to search for the long rope, and took out the devil's spear with the other hand. With a wave of his hand, he struck in the direction of the strange insect. However, just as his hand reached out beyond the dust and yellow brilliance, that long rope was like the tail of a spirit snake, coiling towards Xianhua's arm. Without waiting for it to truly coil around him, Xianxia could feel the magic power on his arm already condensing. Good. What kind of magic tool is this? Xianxia was shocked. Although he didn't use magic power, he was still afraid of being bound by the long rope, so he quickly retracted his arm. With a hong sound, when Xiaohua retracted his arm, the strange insect flew to Xiaohua's side and hit the yellow light barrier. The strength of this strange insect was extremely strong, and the antennae at the tip were also very sharp. Under the collision, the dust shook slightly, and the yellow light barrier shook violently. At the point of impact, a small black dot appeared. Clearly, a small dot was broken through the dust barrier. Using strength to break through? Xiaohua was shocked. This strange insect can actually use strength to break through. Xiaohua was shocked, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The method that he had always regarded as his trump card had actually appeared on this strange insect's body. Moreover, using this method to attack him, it was really like showing off one's slight skill in front of an expert. However, what made Xiaohua even more surprised was that the strange insect actually borrowed the force of the collision to turn around. Its entire body curled up into a ball, and then it rushed over again. The force of the impact wasn't any less than before, and it crashed into his light barrier again. The same black dot appeared on the light barrier. The strange thing was that this black dot was the same as the previous black dot. It remained on the light barrier and couldn't be restored. At this moment, it looked very small, almost negligible. But if time passed, or if this strange insect was a little more agile, it would all attack the same spot. Then, Xiaohua's defensive light barrier would definitely be broken. What should we do? Xiaohua felt a chill run down his spine as he looked at the middle-aged cultivator who was hovering in the air not too far away. The middle-aged cultivator had a ferocious expression on his face, and his face was somewhat pale. Xiaohua appeared to be at a loss as to what to do next. While Xiaohua was pondering, the strange insect had actually attacked him 10 times in a row. Wasn't this the same method that Xiaohua had used to bully others in the past? But now, this strange insect was actually using it to deal with Xiaohua. Haha, little brat from the Imperial Thunder Sect. Now you know the power of my Chongbai sect? The middle-aged cultivator said arrogantly. If you want to run, then run now. I won't chase after you. I know you're a coward. Humph. You're in the same group as my Chongbai sect disciple. If I don't deal with you today, there will be other senior brothers who will deal with you tomorrow. I don't believe that an early-stage 12th-stage Qi refinement disciple like you can overturn the heavens. Damn it, you have a spirit insect, but so do I. Xiaohua knew that this middle-aged cultivator was trying to provoke him and was afraid that he would run away. But he also had methods that he hadn't used yet, so how could he give up so easily? Xiaohua's mind entered the space. Inside the space, Little Silver had a big belly, as if it had just eaten its fill, and was casually rolling around in the air. However, when Xiaohua noticed it, Little Silver nimbly stopped, and a pair of sparkling mouse eyes spun around, as if it was looking for traces of Xiaohua within the light range. Mother! Little Yellow was also flying in the air, calling very affectionately. It had swallowed Kan Mingwei's primordial spirit and its injuries had mostly healed. It looked very energetic. Mother is fighting with someone else. There's a strange little thing that Mother doesn't know how to deal with. Can you help Mother take a look? If there's no way, then hurry back. If there's a way. Xiaohua hesitated. This strange insect's attack method was very similar to his, so he couldn't help but feel greedy. If there's a way. Don't kill it first, subdue it first. Fighting? Hearing this, Little Yellow's eyes lit up and it said, Boy and Little Black often fought before. Little Black wasn't a match for the boy at all. That's good. Be careful. This thing isn't Little Black. It's very powerful. Hearing that Little Yellow had fought with some Little Black, Xiaohua was slightly relieved. Little Silver, let's go and fight with Mother. I'll show you how powerful Mother is. Little Silver cheerfully flew onto Little Yellow's back, without the slightest hint of being as timid as a mouse. Remember, Little Yellow, if you can't beat it, hurry back. Xiaohua brought Little Yellow and Little Silver out of the space. Before flying away, he still reminded Little Yellow. Little Yellow had been stifled for a long time. Its little body flew up and down in the air, very eager to give it a try. When Xiaohua let them out of the light shield, the long rope actually didn't attack Little Yellow. Outside the light barrier, the strange insect was still attacking the light barrier. The more the strange insect attacked, the more the number of black dots increased. Many of them overlapped. The light barrier was about the size of a palm, and it was extremely dim. It was likely that the light barrier would be broken in a short while. The middle-aged cultivator urged his magic power to deal with the spirit crow fire net while controlling the long rope. At this moment, seeing the sudden appearance of little Martin and the spirit-seeking mouse, he was also slightly surprised. Then he smiled and said, "You little brat, you actually also have a spirit storage pouch. Serves me right for being lucky." It was as if this little Martin, the spirit-seeking mouse, and the spirit storage pouch that he hadn't seen yet were already his. But when he saw little Martin and the treasure-seeking mouse clearly, he was shocked again. "Your spirit pet? What is it? Moreover, you even used some treasure-seeking mouse to make up the numbers? Ignorant old man, how could you know about this young master's spirit pet?" Xianxia pointed and scolded, "If you know what's good for you, then run away right now. This young master can spare your life. Otherwise, when this young master takes care of this ugly thing, I'll wring your head." Ha ha ha. That middle-aged cultivator seemed to have seen an extremely laughable thing in the world. If it weren't for the fact that he had to urge his magic power, he would practically be laughing until he bent over. "Just now, I was still afraid that you would escape from the illusion. You're good, you're actually afraid that I would escape. Don't worry, if I don't kill you in the illusion, I absolutely won't go out." That middle-aged cultivator seemed to have also let go, and he actually told Xianxia his plan. Xianxia smiled and said, "What? Do you also want this young master to say the same thing? Dream on. If this young master sees that something is wrong, then I'll immediately escape." Humph. That middle-aged cultivator's face turned cold, and he muttered an incantation. That strange insect left and turned its head, charging straight towards little Huang. "Be careful," Xianxia warned in his heart for no reason. "Don't worry, mother. This thing is still very tender." Very tender. Xianxia was stunned. He didn't expect that little Huang would actually say such words. It seemed this little Huang had somewhat grown up. However, Xianxia didn't have time to think about it, and he looked at little Huang with great concern. He saw that the strange insect emitting black gas flew in front of little Huang, and a pair of sharp antennae pierced straight towards little Huang's abdomen. However, little Huang swung its large tail, and very nimbly dodged. Moreover, at the same time, its left claw slightly clawed, and with a light ripping sound, a small hole was immediately torn open in the strange insect's hard-as-stone shell. The strange insect was in so much pain that it curled into a small ball in midair, and its entire body was trembling. Ah! That middle-aged cultivator was stunned, and his expression changed rapidly. He muttered an incantation even more quickly, and after a while, that strange insect slowly stretched its body and wriggled towards the middle-aged cultivator. How could little Huang let it go? Its yellow figure flashed, and it actually chased after it. The middle-aged cultivator was very anxious, and he formed an incantation with his hands. Little Huang hurriedly dodged, and taking advantage of this gap, the strange insect flew back to the middle-aged cultivator's side. "Go! Attack that person's light barrier." Xianxia was overjoyed when he saw that little Huang was so clever, and he ordered, "That's right, have little Silver come over and help me deal with this long snake." Sure enough, little Silver obediently flew to Xiaohua's side, and chased after the long rope outside, biting it from time to time. Little Huang flew to the middle-aged cultivator's side, and while dodging the spell attack, it stretched out its sharp claws and slashed at the middle-aged cultivator's defensive yellow talisman. Just as Xiaohua expected, little Huang's attack was very powerful. After just a few slashes, the middle-aged cultivator's light barrier began to sway, and the defensive yellow talisman was about to be broken. The middle-aged cultivator's expression changed greatly, and he clenched his teeth, spitting a mouthful of blood on the dispirited strange insect beside him. The strange insect's body flashed with blood, and it immediately became spirited. The black gas around its body disappeared, and it shook its head and wagged its tail as it flew back to little Huang. After the middle-aged cultivator used the strange insect to temporarily lure little Huang away, he raised his eyes to look at Xiaohua and couldn't help but be even more shocked. He saw that the spirit-seeking mouse was biting the middle of the long rope, and its entire small body was flying along with the long rope. The long rope was fine now, but if it was bitten for a long time, there would definitely be a problem. He then looked at his azure wood formation and Xiaohua's spirit crow fire net. They were in a stalemate, evenly matched. If he didn't have any more tricks up his sleeve, he was afraid that this little cultivator he looked down on would really reverse the situation. Thinking of this, the middle-aged cultivator fiercely clenched his teeth, narrowed his eyes slightly, and slapped his hand, taking out another item from the storage bag. Chapter 16:19. It was a black and unremarkable square object. The Changbai sect cultivator carefully took it out and gently held it in one hand. He used his other hand to form a seal and hammered it down on his chest. Poof! He spat out a mouthful of blood onto the small object. There was a soft buzzing sound, as if there were tens of thousands of flying insects flapping their wings. A layer of bronze light gradually appeared on the small square object. Then the middle-aged cultivator hammered his chest a few more times. A total of 6 mouthfuls of blood landed on the small object. The wang wang sound became louder and louder. Moreover, as the sound became louder, the small object also became bigger and the bronze light on it gradually became brighter. Needless to say, this was definitely a very powerful magic tool of the middle-aged cultivator. Xiaohua's face showed a rare seriousness. Soon after, the square object that was about 1 foot in radius revealed its original appearance. It was a tattered seal. Above the seal was a beast's head. However, it was now extremely tattered. Only a small part of it remained on the seal. The outline of the beast could be vaguely seen. The middle-aged cultivator raised the seal with both hands and threw it into the air. He formed a seal and poured all of his magic power into the seal. Wang wang wang. The light on the seal slightly swelled and in the blink of an eye, the middle-aged cultivator's magic power was swept clean. With magic power, the seal more than doubled in size. At this time, countless amounts of heaven and earth spirit energy gathered around the seal and were all absorbed into the seal. Gusts of wind formed around the seal. Magic tool? Even Xiaohua, who didn't have much experience, could sense that something was wrong at this time. As the heaven and earth spiritual qi was absorbed, the seal was constantly expanding, and the brilliance was constantly flickering. Now it was already 1 zhang wide. And it was still expanding. How could a magic tool have this kind of power? Run! Xiaohua was shocked. He didn't hesitate to take out the magic card and urge it with his magic power. He wanted to teleport out of the illusory formation. However, when he poured his magic power into the magic card only flickered slightly before it was annihilated. What's going on? Xiaohua stared blankly. When he used his Buddhist awareness to scan the area, his eyes immediately cracked. He saw that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth within the entire illusory array was disrupted by the seals. The illusory array itself was also restrained by the seals. Around Xiaohua, within a radius of several hundred feet, all of the illusory realms were shattered. Now, everything had turned into bright green energy. This is the power of a magic tool. Xiaohua sighed. When he looked at the seal again, it had expanded to nearly 10 zhang in radius, like a small mountain standing majestically in the air. I still have to run. Xiaohua made a prompt decision and used the hibernating thunder escape to fly away from this dangerous place. At this moment, the middle-aged cultivator pointed with his finger. The seal that was like a small mountain rose slightly and smashed toward Xiaohua. The middle-aged cultivator also collapsed in the air. Just as Xiaohua flew out about 2 feet, the bottom of the seal covered Xiaohua. A kind of valiant imprisoning force came from the seal, firmly suppressing Xiaohua. In an instant, the true energy around Xiaohua's body condensed, and only a trace of magic power supporting the flight technique could be mobilized, barely able to stand in mid-air. The seal's power was so valiant. Not only did the dust above Xiaohua's head lose its brilliance and fall to the air, even the long rope like a flying snake was also blown away by the wind. The seeking spirit mouse was so scared that it trembled and barely landed on Xiaohua's shoulder. What should I do? Seeing the seal carry a boundless aura and drive the surrounding heaven and earth spirit energy to swarm over, Xiaohua looked at the seal that was missing 3 corners and had countless cracks at the bottom. He bitterly thought of a countermeasure. What countermeasure could there be? The mountain-like seal instantly smashed toward Xiaohua's head. Go die! Xiaohua shouted loudly. He reached out and took out the 2 demonic hammers he just obtained from the space. With one in each hand, he gathered all the strength in his body, and as if he was raising fire to burn the sky, he desperately smashed them toward the seal in the air. Clang! A sound that resounded throughout the entire world came from Xiaohua's demonic hammer. The mountain-like seal was actually stopped by Xiaohua's demonic hammer. However, it was only stopped for a moment before the seal smashed down again like a hot knife through butter. Yeah. Xiaohua roared loudly. His eyes were wide open and the veins on his arms bulged. He used all the strength in his body to resist the seal. Slowly, the seal was actually showing signs of stopping. No way, right? The middle-aged cultivator, who was barely sitting in the air, had forgotten to take the medicinal pill in his hand. He was dumbstruck as he watched the mountain-like seal gradually stop. Just like before, the seal slowed down a bit and then gradually accelerated, pressing down on Xiaohua. Roar! Seeing that Xiaohua was about to be pressed into the blue light of the illusion array, a dragon roar that also resounded through the entire heaven and earth came from Xiaohua's mouth. The dragon transformation art that he had been cultivating all this time showed its might at this moment. The meridians in Xiaohua's body slightly trembled, as if a sleeping dragon was awakened. The dragon slightly stretched its body and the true qi in his meridians could immediately circulate. It was also this moment of true qi circulation that Xiaohua immediately used this opportunity to activate his magic power and use the hibernating thunder escape to escape from the seal. The seal lost track of Xiaohua and slightly changed its direction. It still wanted to cover Xiaohua, but the seal's momentum was not over yet. It did not have time to flip over. Xiaohua did not hesitate. He activated his magic power and flew toward the middle-aged cultivator who had taken the medicinal pill and was in a hurry to take out a magic tablet to escape. The middle-aged cultivator had just recovered a bit of his magic power when he saw Xiaohua escape from the seal. He hurriedly took out a magic tablet and wanted to activate his magic power to escape. He had already thrown the bold words he had just said to the back of his mind. Naturally, he was the same as Xiaohua before. He also had no way to escape from the illusion array. Fellow Taoist Xiao. The middle-aged cultivator's previously calm expression had already disappeared. He quickly stood up and said in panic, "You and I are cultivator disciples. What grievances do we have?" But as he spoke, his eyes were still looking at the seal behind Xiaohua from time to time that was gradually turning. Go die! How could Xiaohua listen to his nonsense? He flew in front of the middle-aged cultivator and waved his left hand. The huge devil hammer was raised and ruthlessly smashed towards the middle-aged cultivator's chest. Seeing that the seal had already flipped over, the middle-aged cultivator's face flashed with a trace of joy. He hurriedly activated the remaining magic power in his body and poured it into the defensive yellow talisman. He strove to resist Xiaohua's attack before the seal arrived. Gotcha! Xiaohua's devil hammer hit the middle-aged cultivator's chest. A burst of brilliance flashed and the defensive yellow talisman was smashed like paper. An incomparably huge force attacked the middle-aged cultivator's chest. Ah! A wave of fear that he had never experienced before suddenly rose from the heart of the middle-aged cultivator, a kind of enlightenment that he had never thought would happen before his death. The middle-aged cultivator's meager true qi and his meridians condensed at the same time. Unexpectedly, there were signs of foundation establishment. Fellow Taoist Xiao, spare my life. The middle-aged cultivator was ecstatic and shouted. However, Xiaohua's devil hammer did not hesitate at all. It struck the middle-aged cultivator's chest like a white steed flashing through a crack. Puh! The devil hammer smashed into the middle-aged cultivator's chest. His entire chest caved in. You! Seeing that his lifelong dream was about to come true and being so cruelly torn apart by Xiaohua, the middle-aged cultivator's eyes turned ashen. He could only say one word before his vision turned black. Blood spurted out of his mouth and he fell from the sky. Just as the middle-aged cultivator fell, the entire sky of the illusion array immediately turned blood red. Humph! This young master knows you've reached foundation establishment. But, so what? Xiaohua waved his hand and stored the devil hammer into his space. He sneered and said, "Daring to provoke this young master, then this young master will kill foundation establishment cultivators like you." At this time, the seal had already flipped over. The sealing power that had just been released was retracted because of the middle-aged cultivator's fall. At the same time, The seal also gradually shrunk and returned to its original small size. Xiaohua looked at the seal greedily and smacked his lips. He thought to himself, how can the fragments of other people's magic treasures be so powerful? This young master. Sigh, forget it. If it was somewhere else, wouldn't this thing have changed its surname to Xiao? It can't be helped, it can't be helped. Mother. At this time, Goldie's concerned voice came from the sky. Oh, Goldie, you're not injured, are you? When the seal was released, Goldie had already sensed it and had already flown high into the sky. That strange insect also chased after it, so Goldie wasn't injured at all. This is what Mother wanted. Boy didn't want its life. Goldie's sharp claws were holding the strange insect. At this time, the strange insect had shrunk a lot and was drooping weakly. Great! Goldie reached out and took down Little Silver, who was lying on his shoulder. Little Silver's tail naturally wrapped around Xiaohua's pinky finger. Goldie, you've worked hard. Go back and rest first. Xiaohua sent Goldie, Little Silver, and the strange insect into his space. He also gave Little Silver a lot of spirit herbs. Then, with a wave of his hand, he put away the fire crow net and flew down to collect the floating dust. Because the seal had returned to its original state, the illusion array that had been disturbed by the seal was also gradually recovering. The green chi slowly returned to its original illusion. Xiaohua didn't know when he would be able to leave the illusion array, so he could only sit cross-legged in the air. He took a few medicinal pills and closed his eyes to regulate his breathing. The battle just now was really dangerous. Xiaohua had also used up a lot of true qi. After an unknown amount of time, a beam of light shot out from the blood-red horizon and covered the middle-aged cultivator's corpse. Xiaohua knew that the illusion array had returned to normal. He took out a magic tablet and urged his magic power. Outside Xiaohua's mud pill palace, another Buddha light appeared. It was just that the color of this Buddha light was somewhat different from before. Chapter 16:20. When Xiaohua's figure came out of the array, he immediately heard a voice. He's out, Junior brother Xiao is out. He's still alive? This was Wang Yunzhao's shocked voice. Quick, look where he's hurt. Even though he came out first, he's still alive. That's better than anything else. Needless to say, this was Zhen Yu's voice. Xiaohua landed on the ground. He could clearly see that the dozen or so disciples in front of him were all in a sorry state. Some of their robes were even torn, but they all stared at Xiaohua with fervent gazes. Most of them were concerned. Looking at the dozen or so disciples, there were also a few unrelated ones. Their faces were filled with disdain and a hint of a sneer, but they were all looking at him proudly. Changbai sect disciples? Xiaohua instantly understood. Then a sneer appeared on his face. Senior brothers. Just as Xiaohua opened his mouth to speak, the illusory array behind him suddenly flashed with a blood-red brilliance. With a bang, the middle-aged cultivator's corpse, as well as his scattered magic tools and other items, were all thrown out by the illusory array. Ah! Seeing the blood-red color of the array, everyone knew that someone had died inside. But they didn't care why the blood-red color came out so slowly. Why did Xiaohua come out first? Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they stared at Xiaohua's face. Yes, of course it was inconceivable. That was a late-stage 12th Qi refinement cultivator, 2 levels higher than Xiaohua. If Xiaohua had escaped, they would have understood. But Xiaohua and this Changbai sect disciple had fought for so long. This was the final battle of the entire square. None of the Imperial Thunder sect disciples had expected this outcome. Even the Changbai sect disciples hadn't expected this. Senior brother Fan. The people who'd mocked Xiaohua earlier were now grief-stricken. They hurried forward and shouted. When their divine senses swept over, they saw that their so-called senior martial brother Fan was already dead, without the slightest trace of life. Their eyes were filled with resentment as they glared at Xiaohua. Their movements were nimble. Some lifted up senior martial brother Fan's corpse, while others picked up their artifacts and storage bags, preparing to leave. Wait! Xiaohua said coldly. What? This junior brother. Do you have anything else to say? The disciple who was carrying the corpse replied coldly. Do you want to make an appointment with I? Which cultivator I want to fight with? That's the Tai Ching sex arrangement. I can't be bothered with it. What advice does junior brother have for me? Hee, do you still need to say it? Xiao Hua's face revealed a very cute smile. He pointed at the middle-aged cultivator's storage pouch and said, "The things inside the storage pouch, besides the jade slips and magic tools, everything else seems to already belong to I, right? You shamelessly took away I's things. Can't I say something?" This. The disciple holding the bag of holding blushed. He only wanted to pack his things and thought that Xiao Hua had already taken the bag of holding. Now that he heard Xiao Hua say this, it seems that the disciples of the Changbai sect were really stingy. "Here you go." The disciple threw the bag of holding over and said impatiently, "Take it yourself." "Don't." Xiao Hua quickly waved his hand. "I don't know what to take and what not to take. Let the Tai Ching sect's senior brother decide." The battle between Xiao Hua and the cultivator surnamed Fan had dragged on for the longest time. Naturally, there were Tai Ching sect disciples waiting outside the illusion formation. However, the thunder-controlling sect and the Tai Bai sect seemed to be at odds with each other, so they couldn't interfere. They simply watched from the side without saying anything. When they heard Xiao Hua's words, an early 12th layer Qi condensation disciple walked over and took the storage pouch from the Changbai sect disciple. Then he looked at Xiao Hua and then at the Changbai sect disciples. He reached into his bag of holding and took out several jade slips. He gave them to the Changbai sect disciples and then whispered to a disciple next to him. That disciple quickly left and then said to the Changbai sect disciples, "Other than these jade slips, this bag of holding is filled with spirit stones and pills. It's not convenient for me to take them out for others to see, so I'll have to ask the Changbai sect disciples to come take a look." "I'll do it." The disciple with the storage bag volunteered. However, when he poked his head out to take a look, he involuntarily sucked in a breath of cold air as a strange expression appeared on his face. "How is it? The bag of holding is what I said, right?" the Tai Ching sect disciple asked. "It is, but..." the Changbai sect disciple stammered, "But, there seems to be something wrong with the pills. Please. What's the matter?" A voice came from afar. Everyone looked up and saw that it was the golden core cultivator, Ran Zhu. "Yes, Senior Master knows. The contents of this bag of holding are a bit strange. I don't dare to act rashly. Senior Master, please take a look." The Tai Ching sect disciple said and handed over the bag of holding. At this point, everyone understood that although they didn't know what was inside the bag of holding, if it wasn't spirit stones, then it was pills. There was definitely something out of the ordinary. Ran Zhu frowned and didn't open the bag of holding. "Go get fellow Taoist Liao from the Changbai sect." "I've already sent someone," the Tai Ching sect disciple whispered. "Good." Not long after, Liao Zhouquan from the Changbai sect walked over and saluted Ren Zhu. "May I know what fellow Taoist Ren Zhu wants?" Ren Zhu waved the bag of holding in his hand and said, "Your Changbai sect disciple fought with the Imperial Thunder sect disciple to the death. According to the rules of the Feather Immortal Gathering, everything in this bag of holding, except for the jade slips and magic weapons, belongs to the Imperial Thunder sect disciple. I want you to be a witness." "Which disciple?" Liao Zhouquan turned around and looked. When his gaze landed on the middle-aged cultivator's corpse, he was slightly stunned. It seemed that it was beyond his expectations. His face was filled with bitterness. Which Imperial Thunder sect disciple is so powerful? He actually defeated a famous expert of the Changbai sect? Liao Zhouquan turned to look at the peak of the 12th level Qi Refinement Realm disciples. "I was untalented. I was lucky." Xiao Hua saluted with his hands folded. "You?" Liao Zhouquan's face flashed with surprise, but it disappeared in a flash. "What's your name?" "I's name is Xiao Hua." Xiao Hua answered without hesitation. Liao Zhouquan replied and turned to Ren Zhu. "Since my Changbai sect disciple has lost, this thing naturally belongs to Xiao Hua. Fellow Taoist Ren Zhu, why did you ask I to come over?" Ren Zhu nodded and handed the bag of holding over. "Fellow Taoist Liao, please take a look. I will give it to Xiao Hua right now." Liao Zhouquan took it casually, but when he opened it, he was stunned. He turned to look at the Changbai sect disciples behind him, and then at the middle-aged cultivator's corpse in their hands. He opened his mouth, but didn't say anything. How is it? Fellow Taoist Liao, are you sure? There are only pills and spirit stones inside, right? Renju reached out his hand and asked. Yes, yes. Liao Zhouquan slowly handed the bag of holding over as if he was reluctant to part with it. Okay, since fellow Taoist Liao has confirmed, this bag of holding belongs to Xiao Hua of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Renju took the bag of holding. She didn't want to look at it, but when she saw Liao Zhouquan in a daze and her patrolling disciples didn't dare to look at it, she also glanced at it. Renju was stunned. Looking at Liao Zhouquan's expression, she sighed and handed it to Xiao Hua. This is the bag of holding. It's yours now. But Renju wanted to say something but stopped. She extended her hand to Xiao Hua and didn't take it back immediately. Seeing everyone's reaction, how could Xiao Hua not know that there was something good in this bag of holding? Seeing Renju hand over the bag of holding, Xiao Hua's first reaction was to refuse. But thinking about it, this middle-aged cultivator was the same as Qian Di Heng of the Heavenly Thunder Palace. They both had magic treasures, and they were offensive magic treasures. This person's identity in the Changbai sect must be very high. Since he had already killed him, he had already formed a grudge with a senior of the Changbai sect. What difference did it make whether he took the bag of holding or not? If that was the case, he might as well take it. Therefore, Xiao Hua thought for a moment and took the bag of holding without hesitation. He cupped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior, for upholding justice." Renju looked at her empty hand and a helpless smile appeared on her face. She nodded and said, "No need to thank me, no need to thank me. Take care of yourself." Then she raised her voice and said, "Disciples, please get ready. The last round of the competition today is about to begin. You all need to be prepared. Let's go." Liao Zhouquan waved his hand and led the disciples back to the pavilion of the Changbai sect. After Liao Zhouquan and the others left, Xiao Hua pretended to casually open the bag of holding. Just as his divine sense swept through it, he was stunned on the spot. Even though he had already made sufficient mental preparations, but he was still stunned by the things in the bag of holding. And that greedy little heart of his, tang ting tang, was beating wildly. Damn it! Xiao Hua was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but take a deep breath. Just as he was about to exclaim, he saw the curious gazes of the other disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect. He grinned, his white teeth shining brighter in the twilight. It's just some top-grade spirit stones. Look at how nervous they are. After saying that, he put the bag of holding even more casually in his arms. Hee, little junior brother is very lucky. Qian Diheng said with a smile. In one battle, you won both the person and the money. Seeing that Qian Diheng's expression wasn't good, Xiao Hua didn't say anything. He smiled and said, "Senior brother Qian, didn't you also pass safely? This little brother was just lucky." Lucky. Qian Diheng's expression was indescribable. He turned to the disciples beside him and said with a bitter smile, "You're not just lucky." Seeing that Qian Diheng was trying to change the topic, Xiao Hua asked, "What? Senior brother Qian, do you have something to say?" Junior brother Xiao, you came out late so you don't know. In the third round of the competition, our Imperial Thunder Sect suffered a lot. Li Xiaoxiao said. Chapter 16:21. Okay, let's not talk too much. The fourth round is about to begin. Let's wait until the fourth round is over. Jianghu didn't speak at all. He also felt that there was something strange about the bag of holding, but it was Xiao Hua's and even Renju didn't say anything, so he didn't want to look at it. Seeing the disciples leave, he said, "If you meet a Changbai sect disciple in the fourth round, don't care about the rules. Take out your most powerful treasures and fight. They attacked us first. Martial Uncle Jen has already asked Senior Deming for an explanation. We have to take back some of our disadvantage in the fourth round." Hearing that, Xiao Hua understood. After all, the Tai Bai sect's cultivator surnamed Fan had used a powerful magic artifact to trap him the moment they met. He had even said that taking his life would be the easiest way. Presumably, the other Tai Bai sect disciples also had similar plans. If the Imperial Thunder Sect disciples weren't on guard, there would definitely be some casualties. Who knew which disciple would be unlucky? He looked at Sun Shu, Li Xiaoxiao, and Wang Yunxiao. Oh, and Chen Diheng. That guy has a magic artifact, so he should be fine. As for the others... Where are Minggu and Yuan Bo? Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat, and he hurriedly sent a voice transmission to Wang Yunxiao. Fortunately, according to Wang Yunxiao, Minggu and Yuan Bo were both seriously injured and almost died. Fortunately, they escaped from the illusion array just after the time limit, and were now recuperating in the pavilion. The competition in the future should have nothing to do with them. Ah, good. Xiao Hua nodded at Wang Yunxiao. Xiao Hua didn't have a good impression of the two, but they were still from the same sect. It was better to see them alive than dead. At this moment, the illusory array beside Xiao Hua shone brightly again. 2 rays of light flew out and flew towards 2 different disciples. Senior Li, why isn't there any light on your spell plate? Xiao Hua looked at his own spell plate and then at Li Xiaoxiao's spell plate. Yeah, what's going on? Li Xiaoxiao was a bit anxious. I didn't give up. What are you panicking for? Jianghu scolded. You won this round, go back and rest. Bye. Li Xiaoxiao didn't seem to understand. The Changbai sect already has 2 disciples who have withdrawn from the competition. Naturally, there will be 2 people who will have a bye. Didn't the Celestial Music sect also have a bye in the last round? Jianghu snorted and said, Our Imperial Thunder sect had 2 disciples withdraw in the 3rd round. The other sects will also have 2 disciples without a fight. This situation will only increase in the next few days. Yes, I understand. Li Xiaoxiao cupped her hands and turned around to return to the pavilion. She was very tired today and had consumed a lot of her true qi. Taking advantage of this opportunity, she naturally had to rest early and replenish her strength and magic power. Xiaohua, how are you? Jianghu said with concern. You're a disciple in the early stage of the 12th layer of the aura refining realm. You're not in a hurry to build your foundation, and you've just achieved it. Why don't you withdraw from the competition? Great. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and was about to clap his hands and cheer, but just as the words left his mouth, he shook his head with a crying face. Forget it, disciple will participate in a few more matches. If I withdraw on the first day and return to the Imperial Thunder Sect, Master will definitely peel disciple's skin. Of course, when he thought of Wu Hai getting angry at the slightest thing, Xiao Hua was also a bit scared. Then, why don't you rest for a while? Jianghu seemed to know Wu Hai's temper and didn't try to persuade him. Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua nodded. In fact, he had been resting for a long time in the illusion array and had already recovered his strength and magic power. Because the illusion array was destroyed by the magic treasure, he had to wait for it to slowly recover for a long time, causing him to be the last one to come out. Fellow Taoist? Why haven't you entered the array yet? If you wait any longer, you will be considered to have forfeited. Xiao Hua had just sat down for a while when a Tai Ching sect disciple on duty came over and reminded him. I understand. Thank you, senior martial brother. Xiao Hua got up. The illusion array he was assigned to this time was a bit far. After walking for a while, he saw the illusion array connected to the magic tablet. At this time, there was a tall and sturdy cultivator in front of the illusion array. This cultivator had a fierce face and a beard on his face. He was anxiously looking left and right. When he saw Xiao Hua slowly walking over, his eyes flashed with a trace of astonishment and a trace of panic. Xiao Hua looked at this cultivator strangely. He didn't have any magic tablet on him that was connected to the illusion array. In other words, he wasn't his opponent in the 4th round. Oh, could it be the senior martial brother of the disciple in the array? Xiao Hua understood and slightly nodded at that cultivator. Seeing that Xiao Hua actually took the initiative to nod at him, that cultivator's face showed ecstasy. He cupped his hands and said, Junior Martial Brother Xiao, I am Zhong Tianqing of Xianxia sect. You know my name? Xiao Hua was surprised. He. Fellow Taoist Xiao was the last one to come out. You were very impressive. I saw you from afar. Zhong Tianqing quickly explained. Oh. Xiao Hua realized. Then, his figure moved and was about to enter the illusion array. Zhong Tianqing quickly transmitted his voice. Junior Martial Brother Xiao, Please show mercy. I will definitely thank you. Hee. Xiaohua flew in the air and slightly nodded at Zhong Tianqing. Zhong Tianqing's heart slightly relaxed. And not only did Zhong Tianqing's heart relax, Xiaohua's heart also relaxed. Since Zhong Tianqing wanted to plead for his junior martial brother, presumably that guy's cultivation level wasn't high. What was there for him to be afraid of? However, when Xiaohua flew into the illusion array and saw his opponent in the 4th round, he couldn't help but be stunned. That cultivator definitely wasn't an early or middle 12th layer disciple like he thought. It was a genuine late 12th layer disciple. Moreover, he even knew this person. Wasn't it Zhong Xiaohan of Xianxia sect? Zhong Xiaohan was obviously also stunned. Soon after, a trace of joy flashed across her face. But after that joy, it immediately turned into incomparable fear. Naturally, she must have also seen the miserable state of the middle-aged cultivator from Changbai sect being killed by Xiaohua. An early 12th layer disciple spent a lot of time to kill a late 12th layer disciple. This absolutely couldn't be underestimated. Xianxia sect and Changbai sect were both in Meng country. Naturally, they knew that middle-aged cultivator and also knew about that cultivator's background. Zhong Xiaohan asked herself. In her heart, she didn't have the confidence to win against that Changbai sect disciple. Then, how could she win against Xiaohua? Zhong Xiaohan admittedly wanted to build her foundation, but seeing that even the Changbai sect disciple with a magic weapon wasn't Xiaohua's opponent, she could only be killed by Xiaohua. How could she have a chance to build her foundation? I only hope I can last for half an incense stick's time. Zhong Xiaohan muttered in her heart. She quickly bowed and smiled apologetically. I Xianxia sect's Zhong Xiaohan greets fellow Taoist Xiao. Xiaohua just wanted to smile and greet Zhong Xiaohan, but his heart suddenly moved. He put away his smile and said coldly, We already met yesterday. No need to be so polite. Zhong Xiaohan's heart chilled. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, I didn't know fellow Taoist Xiao had such magical power. I offended you yesterday. Yesterday is yesterday. Today is today. No need to say anything more. Xiaohua waved his hand and clapped his hand. He took out the white dust and threw it in the air, saying, Today is a competition. Why do you and I have to say anything more? Fellow Taoist Xiao, I admit that I'm not fellow Taoist's opponent. I am willing to give you the things in my storage bag. I only hope fellow Taoist can casually exchange a few moves with I. If fellow Taoist can make me pass the time limit of half an incense stick's time, I will immediately withdraw from the competition. Zhong Xiaohan said pitifully, just like what Xiaohua said to others before. Humph, Xiaohua still snorted coldly. Previously, when you fought with my Imperial Thunder Sect disciple, did you show mercy? This. Zhong Xiaohan was at a loss for words. Who would show mercy in this competition of the Feather Immortal Assembly? When Zhong Xiaohan finished speaking, Xiaohua pointed his finger. The white dust emitted an earthy yellow brilliance. That brilliance took the shape of a round ball and smashed towards Zhong Xiaohan. Zhong Xiaohan smiled bitterly and clenched her teeth. She didn't say anything else. She waved her hand and a transparent icicle-like magic tool appeared in her hand. When she activated her magic power, palm-sized snowflakes with 6 petals flew out from the magic tool and blocked the earthy yellow balls. As soon as the snowflakes appeared, the surrounding temperature suddenly dropped. The spinning snowflakes absorbed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and became even sharper. 2 snowflakes attacked the same round ball from different directions and easily cut through the earthy yellow ball. The brilliance on the round ball flickered slightly and was annihilated. Good. Xiaohua sneered, and the spell in his hand changed again. A brilliant light soared into the sky from the speck of dust. That brilliance was divided into granules, like a wave or a storm in the desert, and they whistled as they charged towards Zhong Xiaohan. Seeing the power of the white dust, Zhong Xiaohan's pale face became even paler. She activated the magic power in her hand and struck a magic seal on her body. A milky white brilliance flashed on Zhong Xiaohan's body. A light shield was emitted from her Taoist robe and firmly protected Zhong Xiaohan. Oh, this Taoist robe is also a magic tool? Xiaohua was slightly stunned, but his hands didn't slow down. He increased his magic power and an unending stream of brilliance from the white dust rushed towards Zhong Xiaohan. Pa 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 pa. A series of soft sounds, like gravel hitting a sail or waves hitting the side of a ship, rang out. The defensive light shield on Zhong Xiaohan's body continuously shook and its brilliance became somewhat dim. Zhong Xiaohan hurriedly activated her magic power and replenished the defensive light shield's magic power. Taking advantage of the fact that Xiaohua's second round of attacks hadn't arrived, she waved the magic tool in her hand again. A dozen snowflakes flew out and protected her. Explode! Zhong Xiaohan shouted in a low voice. Pa 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 pa, a dozen times in a row, the snowflakes exploded one after another. The extremely cold spiritual energy in the snowflakes actually froze the earthy yellow brilliance around her. Immediately, they turned into ice dregs and fell to the ground one after another. Good. Seeing this, Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, I'll let you experience Ai's methods. While speaking, Xiaohua took out a dozen fireball talismans and scattered them. He activated his Buddhist awareness and tightly surrounded Zhong Xiaohan from top to bottom. Rumble, rumble, rumble. A series of explosions rang out around Zhong Xiaohan. The impact of the fireball talismans exploding attacked Zhong Xiaohan's defense from all directions. The powerful waves of air rushed towards her and made her almost unable to stand steadily. Chapter 1622. Zhong Xiaohan's expression slightly changed. Without hesitation, she took out dozens of frozen talismans and icicle talismans from her storage pouch and threw them into the air. Ka-cha-cha! Rumble! Ice and fire have been incompatible since ancient times. When the ice attribute talismans and the fire attribute talismans collided, they restrained each other. Immediately, a large amount of heaven and earth spiritual energy was annihilated. Ha ha ha! Xiaohua laughed loudly. You've really tested Ai. Xiaohua waved his hand and dozens of fireball talismans flew out. Zhong Xiaohan naturally didn't dare to be negligent. She took out icicle talismans again. However, after fighting like this for dozens of times, it gradually became clear who was superior. Not to mention that Xiaohua's fireball talismans seemed to be endless and he didn't need to worry about the number. However, the might of his top-grade fireball talismans and the marvelous power of his Buddhist sense made Zhong Xiaohan's frozen talismans unable to retaliate. Zhong Xiaohan had no choice but to wave her magic tool again and use large amounts of snowflakes to make up for the lack of frozen talismans. Even so, the defensive light barrier on Zhong Xiaohan's body began to gradually weaken. However, Zhong Xiaohan's heart also gradually relaxed. Because the time of half an incense stick was almost up. She only needed to hold on for a while more and she would be able to retreat unscathed. At this moment, Xiaohua seemed to have seen through Zhong Xiaohan's thoughts. He waved his hand and dozens of fireball talismans shot out, more than twice as many as before. Fellow Taoist Xiao, why are you so ruthless? Zhong Xiaohan saw the exploding fireball talismans and couldn't help but shout in panic. However, she didn't hear Xiaohua's answer. Only the sound of fireball talismans could be heard in her ears. Forget it! Zhong Xiaohan sighed in her heart. Her left hand that wasn't holding a magic tool slapped again. This time, she didn't take out frozen talismans. Instead, she took out a foot-long palm leaf fan. Puh! A mouthful of blood sprayed onto the palm leaf fan. With a whoosh, a green brilliance flashed. Immediately, Zhong Xiaohan urged her magic power and poured it into the palm leaf fan. As her magic power poured in, the brilliance actually gradually converged until Zhong Xiaohan poured 40% of her magic power into the palm leaf fan. At this moment, the fireball talismans around Zhong Xiaohan had completely exploded, and a strong heat wave rushed towards the brilliance protecting her body. However, the brilliance protecting her body was already extremely thin, and it looked like it would break at any moment. Zhong Xiaohan lightly fanned the palm leaf fan in her hand, and a hurricane was born from the fan. The hurricane grew bigger and bigger, and in the blink of an eye, it actually blew away all the fireballs in the surroundings. Humph! Zhong Xiaohan's heart calmed down as she sneered at Xiaohua. Who would have thought that Xiaohua was standing less than 10 zhong away from Zhong Xiaohan and was also looking at her coldly? Something didn't seem right. Zhong Xiaohan's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, Zhong Xiaohan suddenly felt the defensive light barrier beneath her feet tremble violently. Pa! The light on her Taoist robe was annihilated. When she scanned with her divine sense, she saw a pitch-black iron needle flying straight towards her feet, about to pierce into the soles of her feet. How could Zhong Xiaohan dare to let the black iron needle pierce through? While she rejoiced in her heart, she hurriedly urged her magic power to fan the palm leaf fan in her hand. Another hurricane was born, and it blew the black iron needle away. Woo! Before Zhong Xiaohan could even feel a trace of hope in her heart, another gust of wind came from above her head. It was as if an incomparably huge force was attacking her. Zhong Xiaohan didn't have time to raise her head. She only scanned with her divine sense, and immediately, her eyes widened and her heart trembled. She saw Xiaohua standing in front of her, and a pitch-black iron rod had already struck her forehead. How did he fly in front of me? How is he so fast? I didn't feel anything at all. Zhong Xiaohan's heart was ice cold. This pure-strength devil spear attack was precisely aimed at a cultivator's body. Its threatening and shocking power was far greater than any magic tool or magic treasure's attack on a cultivator's Dao heart. She felt the wind stirred up by the devil spear, as well as the chill of the devil spear itself, already close to the skin on her forehead, even causing goosebumps to rise on her skin. At this moment, Zhong Xiaohan had an incomparable insight into everything in her surroundings. She incomparably felt the closeness of death. At the same time, she incomparably experienced the changes in her own body. In an instant, a kind of understanding arose in Zhong Xiaohan's heart, a kind of indescribable understanding. Following this understanding, the true qi in Zhong Xiaohan's meridians started to liquefy. Foundation establishment. Foundation establishment. Zhong Xiaohan's heart was wild with joy. She had been at the peak of the 12th level of qi refining for a long time, and she had finally waited for this moment. However, Zhong Xiaohan immediately smiled bitterly. She was going to die soon. Foundation establishment. What was the use? But at this moment, Xiaohua's devil spear also stopped. It was tightly pressed against Zhong Xiaohan's forehead. He stopped and stared at Zhong Xiaohan. He smiled meaningfully and said, "What? Fellow Taoist Zhong? You still haven't reached foundation establishment? If you still haven't reached foundation establishment, I can't do anything about it." What? Zhong Xiaohan was dumbstruck. Xiaohua put away the devil spear and said with a smile, "Quickly take a foundation establishment pill, or use some spirit accumulation talisman. This is fellow Taoist Zhong's own hard work. It has nothing to do with I." At this moment, Zhong Xiaohan naturally understood. She didn't have time to thank him. She quickly took out a foundation establishment pill and stuffed it into her mouth. She closed her eyes and prepared to reach foundation establishment. Shua from the horizon of the illusion array. A similar beam of light shot down. It covered Zhong Xiaohan and slowly brought her out of the illusion array. Another achievement. Xiaohua smiled. His figure flew up and also slowly came out of the illusion array. Within the Buddha Saraira, another exceptionally brilliant Buddha light was born. After coming out of the illusion array, sure enough, that cultivator called Zhong Tianqing wasn't at the side. Presumably, he was escorting Zhong Xiaohan back to Immortal Music Sex Pavilion. Let's go, let's go. Today's 4 rounds are over. I need to rest." Xiaohua clapped his hands and turned around to leave. "Xiaohua." "Not far away," Jianghu shouted. "You came out so early? What was the outcome?" There was no outcome. That Immortal Music Sex disciple suddenly reached foundation establishment, so I also came out. Xiaohua said with a smile. "There's another foundation establishment cultivator today?" Jianghu was somewhat incredulous. "I heard that in the previous Feather Immortal Assembly, it was already not bad if there was 1 foundation establishment cultivator per day. How come? This Feather Immortal Assembly is only on the first day, and there are already 2 foundation establishment cultivators." Soon after, Jianghu came to a realization. "And both of them were fighting against you?" Xiaohua scratched his head and said with a smile, "I'm afraid my luck is good. I'm destined to enter the top 32. These senior brothers and disciples can't defeat me, so I can only let them reach foundation establishment." Maybe it's true. Jianghu laughed, but obviously didn't believe it. He said, "Then you should go back and rest. There are still 4 rounds tomorrow. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua bowed in salute and returned to the pavilion alone. The entire pavilion of the Imperial Thunder Sect was quiet. There wasn't any sound at all. Presumably, all the disciples were fighting to the death in the illusory formation, trying to find that slim chance of reaching Foundation establishment. Xiao Hua opened the restriction of his quiet room. Just as he was about to step in, he suddenly thought of something. Yuan Bo and Min Gu were eliminated first, so they must be seriously injured. Should he go and check on them? Xiao Hua didn't want to see them at first, but after thinking about it, they all joined the Imperial Thunder Sect together, and Yuan Bo and the others had shown some intimacy before. Although he didn't know why they were so distant now, but they were seriously injured after all. From a moral point of view, it was better to take a look. Thinking about this, Xiao Hua turned around and walked inside. Yuan Bo and Min Ji's rooms weren't together, and they were even quite far apart. However, when Xiao Hua found Min Ji's quiet room, the door of the quiet room was wide open, and he heard Yuan Bo's hoarse voice from inside. There must be something wrong with that guy. Xiao Hua frowned and increased the force of his foot. Who is it? The 2 people in the room immediately heard the sound. Min Gu was shocked and roared angrily. Little brother Xiao Hua came to see senior brothers? Xiao Hua stood at the door and looked at the 2 people inside with pale faces and greatly damaged vitality, and said with a smile, Xiao Hua. Min Gu was surprised and glanced at Yuan Bo. How did you come out so quickly? This seems to have just passed the time limit? Haha, senior brothers, how are your injuries? Xiao Hua avoided the question and didn't answer, walking in. Humph, junior brother Xiao has good methods. You can actually last until the time limit. You really hid your strength well. Min Gu glanced at Xiao Hua and sneered. Junior brother Min. Yuan Bo scolded. Junior brother Xiao is shrewd. How can the likes of us compare? Min Gu opened his mouth and then sighed, wanting to say something but hesitating. Little brother is also lucky to be able to turn misfortunes into blessings every time. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Senior brothers, your cultivation is much deeper than little brothers. Maybe you were unlucky and met the experts of the Changbai sect, so you were defeated. Of course. Min Gu said loudly. I don't know what that Sun Shu did to make them chase him out of the illusion array. Also, he provoked the conflict between the Changbai sect and my Imperial Thunder sect. Our cultivation is not much worse than the Changbai sect disciples. Their sudden attack made us lose the initiative and could only barely resist. It's already not bad to be able to escape with our lives. If junior brother Xiao was inside, I'm afraid he would have died long ago. Yes. Xiao Hua nodded slightly and wanted to leave. He stood up and said with a smile. Since you are injured, senior brothers should have a good rest. There are no more battles left, your hearts. At this time, a loud voice sounded from behind Xiao Hua. Hee, junior brother Min, you are wrong. How do you know junior brother Zhao's methods? Junior brother Xiao met an expert from the Changbai sect in the 3rd round. After a fierce fight, junior brother Xiao successfully killed that guy and really helped my Imperial Thunder sect vent our anger. Ah? Yuan Bo and Min Gu were very pale. They looked up at Wang Yun Xiao, who slowly walked into the room. Oh, senior brother Wang, you also came out so early? Xiao Hua cupped his hands and asked. Can you sing loudly in the 4th round? I am far worse than you, Wang Yun Xiao said with shame. I barely made it through the 4th round and immediately escaped. Then he glanced at Yuan Bo and Min Gu and said carelessly, Junior brothers, you probably don't know. Junior brother Xiao won all 4 rounds today and got 16 points. He is ranked 1st in my Imperial Thunder sect. Today, have I been in the limelight too much? I am only Qi refinement stage initial stage 12, but I actually obtained 16 points in a row. Truly dazzling. He Fengyuan and Zhong Xiaohan, these 2 disciples, directly entered Foundation establishment, and these 3 points were actually given to I. This is something I never thought would happen. But thinking about Zhong Tianxing's face full of concern and his words of entrustment, I was meddlesome. I only let her leave after the time limit. Why did I have to try? Xiaohua was actually also curious. He remembered the matter of He Fengyuan entering Foundation establishment in the first round. It was when he used the demonic spear to kill He Fengyuan that He Fengyuan suddenly gained enlightenment in the midst of life and death, thus stepping into Foundation establishment. Thus, he also wanted to give it a try in the battle with Zhong Xiaohan. He originally did not expect to succeed, but the reality was beyond his expectations. He really did let Zhong Xiaohan enter Foundation establishment. Although Xiaohua and Zhong Xiaohan had only met once, Xiaohua felt that Zhong Xiaohan was not bad, at least much stronger than his fellow disciple Min Gu. Thus, he did not regret helping Zhong Xiaohan enter Foundation establishment. What he regretted now was that today's limelight was too much. Just as he was thinking, the quiet room's restriction shook, as if someone had come to visit. Who is it? Xiaohua frowned slightly. His mood was really bad now. He did not want to see anyone. When he opened the restriction, an unfamiliar voice came from outside the door. Xiaohua. Xiaohua. Hearing this, Xiaohua became angry and said coldly, "Who is so rude? Directly calling me by my name?" Humph. Are you Xiaohua? 3 late-stage 12th layer qi refining disciples rushed into Xiaohua's quiet room, and the disciple with thick eyebrows and big eyes in the front shouted angrily. "Get out!" Xiaohua said coldly. "You are Xiaohua?" That disciple was also furious. "I have something to discuss with you. You dare to speak such arrogant words? Get out!" Xiaohua did not answer and said coldly, "If you don't leave, don't blame this young master for being impolite." "You dare!"